Chapter 7:12. After hesitating for a moment, Gao Jiangong finally sat down. But he said unhappily, "I've eaten out so many times, but this is the first time I've sat at the table." Wang Rubing breathed a sigh of relief. Anyway, she had finally passed the test. She hurriedly told the waiter to serve the dishes. When she booked the table just now, she had already ordered the dishes. She didn't dare to let Gao Jiangong order the dishes himself. Otherwise, the dishes in this clubhouse were really expensive. If this guy ordered them, how could she clean up the mess? Li Changji was usually honest and self-disciplined. He never accepted gifts or money from others. This time he paid for the meal out of his own pocket. He couldn't afford to spend too much money. Soon the waiter served all the dishes. Gao Jiangong glanced at the dishes, and his eyes flashed with contempt. Li Changji reached out and grabbed a bottle of Maotai on the table. He opened the lid and poured a glass of wine for Gao Jiangong, and then poured a glass for himself and Wang Rubing. He raised his glass and said to Gao Jiangong, "Chief Gao, a glass of wine is not enough to show my respect. I'll drink to you first. Drink up." Generally, Li Changji wouldn't let a girl like Wang Rubing drink at the table. He said a few polite words and drank up the wine in the glass. Gao Jiangong didn't drink the wine in front of him. He didn't even pick up the glass. His face became more and more gloomy. As the person in charge of a department with real power, there were many people who invited him to dinner. But this time it was a little shabby. Although he had been asked to go to the Flower Square Health Club, he was sitting in the hall like an ordinary person. He had tolerated it, but the dishes were so poor that none of the club's signature dishes were available. The most important thing was the wine. Who would drink Maotai or Wuliangye in the capital? Which one of them didn't drink red wine? Now a bottle of Maotai, which was not very old at all, was given to him. If this was seen by others, he would lose face. Sure enough, he came from a small place and didn't know the ways of the world at all. It seemed that he had to hold back the money and couldn't send it to Jiangnan City in a short time. Thinking of this, he picked up the glass and sniffed it gently. Then he put it back on the table and said with a frown, "I haven't been feeling well recently. Drinking this kind of Maotai-flavored liquor is too stimulating for my stomach. I'm sorry I can't drink it." Li Changji and Wang Rubing looked at each other. They were not fools, so they naturally heard Gao Jiangong's dissatisfaction. However, this bottle of Maotai was ordered by them and they spent a total of 2,000 yuan. Wang Rubing's eyes widened. The more she thought about it, the angrier she became. The money should have been allocated to Wufeng County. It had been stuck here for more than half a month, and now she hadn't seen a penny. Now, Mayor Li was treating them out of his own pocket, and the dishes and wine on the table had cost him half a year's salary. The standard was not bad, but this old thing actually thought that the Maotai wine was not good. Li Changji winked at her, indicating that she must suppress her anger. Then he said to Gao Jiangong, "Chief Gao, I'm so sorry. I didn't know that you were in poor health. Let's change a bottle of red wine right now. Which brand do you like?" Gao Jiangong's expression eased a lot. He said to the waiter next to him, "Give me a bottle of Bordeaux. This wine tastes good." "Okay, sir. Please wait a moment." The waiter turned back to the bar and soon came over with a bottle of red wine with foreign characters. "Excuse me, sir. Do you want to open it now?" Although he knew that the wine must be expensive, Li Changji gritted his teeth and said, "Yes, of course." The waiter pulled out the cork, poured a glass of wine for each of them and turned to leave. Gao Jiangong picked up the glass and took a sip. Then he nodded with satisfaction. "This wine tastes good and red wine is good. Red wine is good for health." After a while, Wang Rubing sneaked to the bar and took a look at the price of the wine. She suddenly stuck out her tongue in shock. It turned out to be 12,800 yuan per bottle. This bastard was really cruel. He actually ordered more than 10,000 yuan for a bottle of wine. But now that the wine had been drunk, she could only hope that the money was not spent in vain and that she could take it back. Gao Jiangong didn't hesitate to eat and drink at the table. Because they knew the price of the wine, Wang Rubing and Li Changji didn't drink much. The 750 milliliters bottle of red wine was almost in Gao Jiangong's stomach. Seeing that they were almost drunk, Li Changji said, "Chief Gao, we're from Jiangnan City. It's not easy to work at the grassroots level. Please help us. We really need the poverty alleviation fund from the state. Can you help us solve it as soon as possible?" Gao Jiangong drank up the last glass of wine, but he was getting angrier and angrier. He really didn't know what people from such a small place were thinking. They just drank a bottle of wine, but they didn't call it wine. He hadn't drunk enough yet. How could they talk about it? He said with a cold face, "Old Li, there are many grassroots departments in the country and there are many poor counties. There are too many places that need money. You'd better wait for the money." Then he sneered in his heart. Although your level is higher than mine, so what? This is the capital, under the feet of the emperor. You still have to listen to me. Seeing that the meal was going to be wasted, Li Changji quickly said, Chief Gao, can you make an exception? This money is used to build an ecological agricultural industrial base. If the money is in place now, it can be used for the basic construction. If it's a little later, it will be too late. This delay will be a year. I can't make an exception. Gao Jiangong said with a sullen face, it's your job to arrange the production. My job is to allocate the money reasonably. There are too many places that need money now. There are people who have to wait here for more than half a year. This kind of thing can't be rushed. After all, the state's funds are limited. You can continue to wait in line. As he spoke, he felt a burst of disdain in his heart. Sure enough, people from a small place. I can tolerate it when they sit at the table. I can also tolerate when they order some plain vegetables instead of the signature dishes. But they only drink 1 bottle of wine. How can they talk about it without drinking enough wine? It seems that this money can't be released in a short time. Li Changji was a little anxious and said, Chief Gao, this money is specially approved by the state. Gao Jiangong sneered and said, which of my money isn't approved by the state? How can I release it without approval? Isn't that a mistake? I have something to do. I'll go first. After that, he stood up and walked out of the door. Seeing that the meal was in vain, Wang Rubing could no longer suppress the anger in her heart. She stepped forward and grabbed his arm. You can't go? Gao Jiangong suddenly became angry. Sure enough, people from a small place have no manners at all. What are you doing? He turned around, shook off Wang Rubing's arm and said angrily, do you people from a small place have any rules? I'm telling you there's something wrong with this money. I'll go back and re-examine it. Whether to release it or not depends on the review. No matter what, he was a tall and strong man. Wang Rubing was thrown back 7 or 8 steps by him. In the end, she failed to stabilize her center of gravity and fell backward. She was so scared that her face turned pale. At this moment, a big hand firmly supported her back and helped her up. Qin Haodong helped Wang Rubing up, looked at Gao Jiangong in front of him and said coldly, I'll give you one last chance. Go back and handle the Poverty Alleviation Fund in Wufeng County now. It must be distributed before 8:30 tomorrow morning. Otherwise you can quit your job. Boy, who are you? How dare you talk to me like this? Gao Jiangong was furious. He really didn't know what was wrong with him today. But at this moment he suddenly saw Han Jiu standing next to Qin Haodong. Miss Han, why are you here? Although as an ordinary person he did not know the existence of the 7 great families in the capital, he knew that Han Jiu's identity was extremely special. Once he came here for dinner with a deputy director who had real power in the bureau. The deputy director had to greet this woman respectfully when he saw her, and he was not even qualified to go up to her. Later he asked about Han Jiu's identity. The deputy director said that she was the boss of the health club and he could not afford to offend her. But if Han Jiu was unhappy, she could make the deputy director lose his job. Even the deputy director could not afford to offend her, so he naturally remembered her. Every time he came here to eat, he would be very careful. Today he saw her and hurried forward to greet her. Han Jiu ignored his humility. She took a step forward and took Qin Haodong's arm. She said, this is my man. Do as he says. Qin Haodong was slightly stunned when he heard Han Jiu say that he was her man. It seemed that once a woman fell in love with someone, her role would change very quickly. In fact, even if he did not use the power of the Han family, he had 100 ways to make Chief Gao lose his job and even put him in prison. Hearing Han Jiu's words, Gao Jiangong trembled with fear. He could take Qin Haodong's words as a joke, but this woman's words were not a joke. He quickly said, don't worry. I'll go back and work overtime now. The money will definitely be in place tomorrow morning. At the same time he hated Li Changji and Wang Rubing in his heart. Why didn't they use their connections in the capital earlier? Not only did they make a fool of themselves here, but they might also offend a big shot. After that, he turned around and was about to leave. Qin Haodong shouted again, wait a minute, I haven't asked you to leave yet. Gao Jiangong hurriedly turned back and said respectfully, sir, if you have any other orders, please feel free to tell me. Qin Haodong said, go to the bar first and pay the bill before you leave. Pay the bill? Gao Jiangong could not help but grimace. Although he did not see the bill, he could guess that the meal would cost more than 20,000 yuan, which was almost half a year's salary. If he had to pay the bill, it would be really painful. Qin Haodong said, what's wrong? Don't you want to pay? Yes. Gao Jiangong nodded repeatedly. In comparison, his hat was more important than the money for the meal. He obediently ran to the bar, paid all the money for today's meal, and then left the club in disgrace. Wang Rubing and Li Changji were stunned. They didn't expect that they didn't have to spend a penny on this meal and they could get it done. They did not expect that Qin Haodong would have such a great influence in the capital. Qin Haodong went over to greet Li Changji and then introduced Han Jiu. Hearing that they were Qin Haodong's sister and fellow villager, Han Jiu hurriedly opened her own private room and then ordered a new table of wine and dishes to entertain the two of them. Finding an opportunity, Wang Rubing pulled Qin Haodong and asked, "Tell me the truth. What's your relationship with her?" Qin Haodong did not hide it and said, "You heard it just now. Jiu is my girlfriend." Chapter 713. Wang Rubing asked, "What about Lin Momo? Did you abandon her?" No, I'm not that kind of person." Qin Haodong did not want to talk too much about this issue. He asked about the physical condition of old Master Li and the others, and then took out a bank card from his pocket and handed it to Wang Rubing. "Sister, there's some money in this card. Take it back and buy a bigger house in Jiangnan. Take grandpa, grandma and aunt there, and buy a decent car so that they can live a good life. If grandpa still can't give up traditional Chinese medicine, buy him another shop and open a clinic." Wang Rubing picked up the bank card and said, "You're spending money again. Do you know how much it costs to do these things in Jiangnan?" "Of course I know. It's about 70 or 80 million yuan. There's 100 million yuan in this card, which should be enough for you. I'll transfer more money to it later." Hearing that there were 100 million yuan in the card, Wang Rubing was so scared that her wrist shook and the card fell to the ground. She quickly picked it up and said, "Where did you get so much money?" Li Changji, who had been silent, also changed his expression. 100 million yuan was definitely not a small amount. Some large-scale enterprises only had tens of millions of registered capital, but Qin Haodong took it out calmly as if it were 1,000 yuan. Qin Haodong said, "Don't worry. I didn't steal or rob the money. It's legal and above board." Wang Rubing pushed the card back to him and said, "Even if you got the money legally, grandpa, grandma, dad and mom can't accept it. Mom is still using the money you left last time for you to get married." Qin Haodong grabbed the card and stuffed it into her hand. "Just take it. It's a good time to get married. Who would want to spend money?" Wang Rubing hesitated for a moment and finally put the card in her bag. Then she glanced at Han Jiu, whose cheeks were red. She glared at him and said, "How can you say that in front of a girl? Will you die if you don't pretend?" "I'm not pretending. I'm telling the truth." Qin Haodong said, "Sister, Mayor Li, come to my house after dinner." Li Changji said, "Little Qin, forget it. We've wasted a lot of time in the capital this time. There are still many things to do at home." As the mayor of a city, he had a lot of things to do. Wang Rubing said with a sad face, "The train tickets and air tickets in the capital are too tight. Now I can't even book a ticket back to Jiangnan." In order to be in a hurry, and the imperial capital had a very strict limit on the number of cars from other places, they flew here instead of driving. Qin Haodong said, "It's okay. I'll help you with the plane. Just tell me when you want to go back." Li Changji said, "Of course, the sooner the better. Please wait a moment." Qin Haodong took out his cell phone and called Uncle Wang. Uncle Wang was in charge of receiving the Zhao family's private plane yesterday. Soon he hung up the phone and said to Li Changji, "I've booked the plane. It will take off in 2 hours. Let's eat now and then I'll send you to the airport." Wang Rubing reached out and pinched his waist. "Why are you always joking? Mayor Li is talking business with you." Qin Haodong grimaced and said with a wronged face, "Sister, why did you pinch me? I'm talking about business too." Wang Rubing widened her eyes and said, "Nonsense. I just checked. There is no flight to Jiangnan in 2 hours." Qin Haodong said, "This is not a flight. It's my private plane. I've already told the air traffic control department. It will take off in 2 hours. After he said this, Wang Rubing's eyes widened and her mouth opened so wide that an egg could be stuffed in. It took her a long time to come to her senses and said, "Haodong, are you kidding? Sister, Mayor Li is here. How can I make such a joke with you? But where did you get your private plane?" Qin Haodong said with a smile, "I got it from my wife." "You're not serious." Seeing that Wang Rubing was about to lose her temper, Qin Haodong hurriedly said, "I'm serious. It's my girlfriend's dowry." Wang Rubing turned to look at Han Jiu with a questioning look in her eyes. Qin Haodong said, "You don't have to look at Jiu. This plane is not a gift from her family." Han Jiu nodded and said shyly, "The plane is not my family's dowry. My family's dowry is a restaurant." Wang Rubing opened her mouth in shock again. She cursed in her heart. What the hell was going on? No wonder Qin Haodong just said that he could make money by getting a wife. It seemed that he was not joking. It seemed that it was really profitable. A restaurant and a private plane in the capital. How much would it cost? Qin Haodong's family sent him a plane and a hotel, and he had more than one girlfriend. Even though Li Changji rarely joked, he still couldn't help giving a thumbs up and saying, "Brother Qin, I admire you for being a man." At this time Han Jiu took out 2 golden cards from her bag and gave one to Li Changji and Wang Rubing. "Brother Li, Sister Wang, it's our first time meeting. I don't have anything to give you. This is the supreme card of our Greenhouse Ecological Club. With these 2 cards, you can come here for dinner when you arrive in the capital. The card has no limit. Please accept it." Wang Rubing quickly pushed the card back and said, "Sister Jiu, I can't accept it. It's our first time meeting. This gift is too expensive." She had just experienced the high consumption here. Even the restaurants outside cost tens of thousands of yuan. The value of the supreme card with no limit was really immeasurable. Seeing that her gift was returned, Han Jiu said anxiously, "Sister Wang, this card is really nothing. This club is my private property. In fact, it's also my dowry. If you feel embarrassed, you can take it as a gift from Haodong. It's just 2 food cards. Just take it." Qin Haodong then stuffed the 2 cards into Wang Rubing's hands. "Dowry again?" Wang Rubing's mouth was wide open. "By the way, I also have 2 cards here. Sister, take them. It's a red envelope for your wedding." Qin Haodong took out 2 black VIP cards from his pocket and gave them to Wang Rubing. "This is the supreme card of the Taotai restaurant. It has no limit. This is the supreme card of the Heaven-Earth Trading Building. It has no limit. You can buy anything you need when you get married in the future. It's all free." Although Wang Rubing had just arrived in the capital, she had heard of the reputation of the Taotai restaurant and the Heaven-Earth Trading Building. They were places for high-end people to spend money. She had never thought of spending money there. Now her brother had given her 2 unlimited supreme cards in the blink of an eye. How much were they worth? She asked hesitantly, "Brother, are the restaurants and the commercial buildings also your properties?" Qin Haodong nodded and said, "Of course. Don't worry and don't worry about it." "Is this a dowry again?" "Of course it's a dowry. Otherwise, where can I get such a big business?" Qin Haodong said confidently. At this moment, Wang Rubing felt that her heart had completely collapsed. When did marrying a wife become such a profitable business? "Brother, you won't be a gigolo in the capital, will you?" Qin Haodong said, "Sister, what are you talking about? These are all sent by her maiden family. If you don't believe me, you can ask Jiu." Han Jiu nodded and said shyly, "Yes." Wang Rubing felt that she had nothing in common with her brother. After a simple bite, she rushed to the airport with Li Changji. Qin Haodong drove a commercial car of the club to the airport and sent them to his private plane. It was not until this moment that Wang Rubing completely believed that what Qin Haodong said was true. After sending them off, Qin Haodong looked at the time and said to Han Jiu, "Let's not rush back. We have to pick someone up at the airport later." In the morning, he called Momo and said that the things in Shanghai had been completely dealt with. She and the little fellow would take an afternoon flight to the capital. This was the right time to pick them up. He took Han Jiu to the exit of the airport hall. While waiting for them to arrive, he chatted with Han Jiu and told her about his situation. While the 2 of them were talking, a boy about 7 or 8 years old suddenly rushed over on a scooter. Although the airport was crowded, the little boy didn't care at all. He just rode on his scooter and dashed around. Seeing that the little boy was about to hit Han Jiu, Qin Haodong quickly reached out to hold her waist and moved her behind him. Only then did they manage to avoid the scooter that was rushing over quickly. They managed to avoid it, but a middle-aged man who was dragging a suitcase not far away was not so lucky. He was hit by the little boy's scooter. Whose child is this? Why is he riding a scooter at the airport? Where are the adults? Is there anyone who cares? The middle-aged man was hit for no reason and he roared angrily. "What are you shouting for? You won't die from being hit by a child. It's not a big deal." At this time, a young man in his 30s walked over. He raised his chin and had an arrogant look on his face. He was wearing expensive branded clothes and a large gold watch on his wrist. Behind him were 4 tall and strong bodyguards. Seeing the young man's momentum, the middle-aged man knew that he could not afford to provoke him. He looked at him bitterly and then left with his suitcase. The young man looked proud. He turned to the little boy and said, "Son, continue to skate. Do whatever you want. Dad is here for everything." Han Jiu was speechless and said to Qin Haodong with dissatisfaction, "Why is he like this? How can he teach his child like this? Qin Haodong said, some people think they are the best in the world because they have a little money. They even forget their surnames. Forget it, let's ignore them. He was now waiting to meet the little fellow and did not want to pay attention to such a playboy. After a while, a plane slowly landed from the airport, and then a large number of people rushed out of the exit. Soon, Qin Haodong saw Lin Momo and the little fellow. Tang Tang was also constantly searching in the crowd and saw Qin Haodong at a glance. Papa. Papa. After seeing him, the little fellow immediately broke free from Lin Momo's arms and ran to him happily. After seeing the pink and tender little fellow, Han Jiu exclaimed, Haodong, is this your daughter? She is so beautiful, like a fairy in a fairy tale. While they were talking, the little boy on the scooter suddenly rushed over again. Because it was so sudden, the little fellow had no time to dodge and they collided with each other with a bang. Although Tang Tang was much younger than the little boy, she had the Suzaku sacred body and her body was much stronger than ordinary children. This time she was fine, but the little boy flew out with the scooter. Chapter 7:14. After the little boy was knocked away, he fell off the scooter and fell heavily to the ground. When he saw that his knees were all scratched, he immediately burst into tears. After all, the little fellow was still a child. She was frightened by this sudden incident. She stood there at a loss and did not know what to do for a while. Seeing his son fall, the arrogant young man immediately rushed over. He first helped the little boy up. After checking his injury, he immediately became furious. Damn girl, you actually dared to bump into my son? He turned around and reached out to grab Tang Tang, but he grabbed nothing. He looked up and saw that the little fellow was held in the arms of a young man. Tang Tang hugged Qin Haodong's neck and said nervously, Papa, I didn't mean to hit him. It's not my fault. Qin Haodong patted the little fellow on the back and comforted her. Papa, I didn't mean to hit him. It's not my fault. He was right. If the young man had not allowed his son to play with the scooter at the airport, there would not have been such an accident. His son was injured, and now Qin Haodong said that he had no manners. The young man suddenly became furious. He pointed at Qin Haodong and shouted, Boy, who are you talking about? Qin Haodong said coldly, Of course I'm talking about you. If you hadn't allowed the child to play with the scooter at the airport, how could this have happened? Fortunately, your son did not hurt my daughter. Otherwise, you would not be able to bear the consequences. It was okay that the scooter did not hit Han Jiu just now, but now it had hit his daughter. How could he still tolerate this young man's arrogance? Fortunately, the little fellow was not injured. Otherwise, this young man would have to bear his thunderous anger. Boy, how dare you talk to me like this? Do you know who I am? Qin Haodong was about to speak when Lin Momo rushed over. Seeing that Tang Tang was fine, she turned to the young man and said, It's normal for children to have some accidents. Well, I'll pay for your son's medical expenses. How much do you want? Money? The young man smiled coldly and shouted arrogantly, Do you think I'm short of money? Qin Haodong frowned when he saw that the man was so ungrateful. What do you want? The young man shouted, I don't care who you are. Your daughter hit my son. Today I must throw her down. At least she must fall harder than my son. Otherwise today's matter will not be over. Seeing that this guy had gone too far, Qin Haodong's face suddenly darkened. When he was about to lose his temper, a coquettishly dressed woman came over. When she saw the young man and the crying little boy, she cried, Brother, what's going on? How did Xiaoyang get hurt? The young man said, It's all that blind little girl's fault. She just hurt Xiaoyang. Now I'm going to make her fall at least harder than our Xiaoyang. After hearing what he said, the coquettish woman didn't mean to stop him. On the contrary, she thought it was reasonable. She looked up at Qin Haodong and shouted, Did you hear that? Hurry up and do as my brother says. Seeing that the brother and sister were so rude and unreasonable, Qin Haodong's anger rose in his heart. He said coldly, Get out of here before I can control my anger. Hey boy, you're so arrogant. The young man immediately shouted, Do you know who I am? I'm Chu Mingtsong of the Chu family, the third generation of the Chu family. Your daughter just hurt the heir of our family. It's already a light punishment for me to throw her down. Otherwise I'll break all your legs. The Chu family? Hearing that these people were from the Chu family, Qin Haodong sneered. It seemed that there was something wrong with the Chu family's education. How could they educate their children like this? Seeing that Qin Haodong was silent, Chu Mingtsong thought that he was afraid. A smug smile appeared on his face. Tomorrow was the 80th birthday of the old master, Chu Shanhe. He had brought people to pick up his sister, Chu Mingjiao. He shouted proudly, Hurry up and do as I say. You can't afford to offend the Chu family. Qin Haodong glanced at him coldly and said, "For the sake of the Chu family, I'll give you a chance. Get out of here." Chu Mingtsong was slightly stunned. He didn't expect that Qin Haodong wouldn't give him face even though he knew the Chu family. He immediately became angry and waved to the bodyguards behind him. "Beat him up. First, destroy the toy boy and then deal with the little girl." After receiving their master's order, the 4 bodyguards answered and rushed to Qin Haodong, who was holding the little fellow like wolves. But before they could touch the father and daughter, a sharp high-heeled shoe appeared in front of them, followed by a scream. It was Lin Momo. Just now she wanted to compensate them with some money. Seeing that these people were unreasonable, she no longer showed mercy and destroyed the 4 bodyguards in the blink of an eye. Chu Mingtsong was stunned. His bodyguards were all retired agents of the special department. In the past, as long as they attacked, they would succeed. He didn't expect that the beautiful woman's long legs could be so powerful. In the blink of an eye, his bodyguards were destroyed. While he was stunned, Qin Haodong came to him with the little fellow in his arms. Originally he was also a martial artist, but under the great pressure of Qin Haodong, the genuine qi in his body stopped running. He had no ability to resist at all. Then he was kicked in the lower abdomen and flew more than 10 meters away. He plunged into the trash can below. "Great, Papa is so great." The little fellow clapped her hands excitedly. Chu Yujiao stood next to him. Seeing her brother and the 4 bodyguards being beaten like dogs, she stepped forward and shouted, "Boy, how dare you touch the people of the Chu family? You're dead." Qin Haodong glanced at her coldly and said, "I won't hit a woman this time, but there won't be a next time." Chu Yujiao, who had always been arrogant, was so scared when she saw his cold eyes. She closed her mouth and did not say a word. Qin Haodong ignored these people and introduced Han Jieyu and Lin Momo. Then they got in the business car and rushed to the Tang sect. Qin Haodong drove, and the little fellow Lin Momo and Han Jieyu sat in the back. "Auntie, you're so beautiful." After getting in the car, the little fellow immediately ran into Han Jieyu's arms. Han Jieyu was also very fond of this elf-like little fellow. She pinched her chubby little face and said, "Tang Tang is also beautiful. When you grow up, you will be more beautiful than me." The little fellow leaned against her ear and whispered, "Auntie, do you also like Papa?" Han Jieyu did not expect that the little elf would ask such a question. As a woman from a big family, although she did not care about this kind of thing, she had to consider Lin Momo's feelings. She could not help but blush and look to the side. When she saw that Lin Momo did not have any strange expression, she was relieved. "Auntie, it doesn't matter. I'm talking so softly that Mama can't hear me. You can tell me secretly." After the little fellow finished speaking, she looked at Han Jieyu with a pair of big watery eyes. She could not refuse this elf-like little fellow, so Han Jieyu could only nod slightly. Great, Papa found me a beautiful mama again." The little fellow shouted happily and no longer wanted to keep it a secret. With the existence of Tang Tang, the atmosphere in the car became extremely cheerful and there was laughter from time to time. After Qin Haodong left, the bodyguards hurriedly got up and ran over to pull Han Mingtsong out of the trash can. Han Mingtsong threw away the banana peel on his head and scolded angrily, "Bastard, do you think you're great just because you're a martial artist? How dare you hurt our Chu family? Just wait and see, I won't forgive you." After that, he took out his mobile phone from his pocket and quickly dialed his father, Chu Xianming. Chu Xianming had been very unhappy in the Chu family these days. Since Chu Xuanli was promoted to the 8th level of the Supreme Power Realm by Qin Haodong, his status in the Chu family had immediately risen. Whether it was the family master Chu Shanha or the other 2 elders, they all looked up to the eldest son. It seemed that they had the intention to pass the position of the family master to Chu Xuanli. Although he also bought a spirit culturing pill at the last auction and managed to raise his cultivation to the 7th level of the Supreme Power Realm, there was still a great gap between him and Chu Xuanli. Tomorrow was the 80th birthday of the old master Chu Shanha. He wanted to take the opportunity to perform well and restore his image in the eyes of the family master. He had just called his daughter Chu Mingjiao back and asked his son to pick her up at the airport. He did not expect that he would be beaten up. After hearing the news, he suddenly became furious. It was okay that he was bullied by Qin Haodong, but someone dared to bully his son. How could he have any face in the Chu family in the future? Thinking of this, he immediately called over a few experts from the Chu clan and rushed toward the airport. He wanted to personally teach this ignorant brat a lesson and vent the frustration in his heart. Before they arrived at the airport, they saw a commercial car coming. The license plate was exactly the same as what Chu Mingtsong had said. They immediately ordered their men to block the car in the middle of the road. Qin Haodong was driving when he suddenly saw several off-road vehicles blocking the road. He realized that they were looking for trouble. He stepped on the brakes and the commercial car stopped. At this time he saw Chu Xianming jump out of an off-road vehicle with an angry face. He could not help but sneer. It seemed that the uneducated guy was his son. Like father, like son. Chu Xianming came to the front of the commercial car aggressively and shouted, "Boy inside, get out of the car. I must teach you a good lesson today." Halfway through his words, he suddenly stopped like a rooster whose neck had been grabbed. At this time, the window was rolled down and he saw the handsome smiling face inside. He did not even have the courage to say a word. He did not expect that the person his son had provoked was Qin Haodong. This little bastard, of all people, he provoked this devil. When he came to his senses, he cursed Chu Mingsong's ancestors in his heart. He completely forgot that Chu Mingsong was his own son. Qin Haodong looked at Chu Xianming, who was confused, and asked with a smile, "Mr. Chu, why did you stop my car?" Chu Xianming did not dare to say that he was looking for trouble. He quickly put on a bright smile and said, "Haodong, in fact, I'm here to invite you. Tomorrow is your grandfather's 80th birthday. Please come to the birthday party with Xianyue." "I see. If there's nothing else, please get out of the way." After saying that, Qin Haodong directly rolled up the window, not showing any mercy to the second young master of the Chu family. Chu Xianming gritted his teeth with hatred, but he did not dare to show any dissatisfaction. He waved to his men behind him and the off-road vehicles immediately moved aside and made way for him. Qin Haodong suddenly stepped on the accelerator. The commercial car roared and sped away, leaving a thick cloud of black smoke. Chapter 7:15. As the business car sped away, the smile on Chu Xianming's face slowly disappeared and his eyes were full of resentment. At this moment a few more cars came. After they stopped, Chu Mingsong jumped out of the car and ran to Chu Xianming's side. He said, "Dad, where is that guy? Didn't you stop him?" Chu Xianming said with a gloomy expression, "Yes, but we can't afford to offend them." "Can't afford to offend them?" He asked doubtfully, "Other than the people from the 7 great families, is there anyone else in the capital that we can't afford to offend?" "Is Qin Haodong." "What? Is Qin Haodong?" Hearing that, Chu Mingsong was shocked at first, and then he said bitterly, "Dad, is our Chu family really afraid of such a guy? Let him step on our heads and do whatever he wants?" Chu Xianming glanced around and saw that there was no one around. He said fiercely, "Of course not. This kid dares to look down on us. I must make him pay the price." Hearing that he could take revenge, Chu Mingsong said excitedly, "Dad, what do you want to do?" Chu Xianming said, "Although he is very strong, your father is not weak. He will definitely come to your grandfather's birthday party tomorrow. At that time it will be a trap." After that, he asked the bodyguards around him to get in the car and return to the Chu family. Qin Haodong returned to the Tang sect with Lin Momo, the little fellow, and Han Jiu. Chu Xianyue was sitting in the hall with a group of daughters-in-law and watching TV. Seeing that her son had brought back 3 beautiful women, she was overjoyed and welcomed them. It was the first time for Wei Yanran, Yan Feifei, and the others to see the little fellow. They immediately liked it. The little fellow was also very happy to see so many beautiful aunties. She shouted excitedly, "Second mom, third mom, Auntie Waner, and so many beautiful aunties, do you all like my papa? That's great." Qin Haodong quickly grabbed her, pointed to Chu Xianyue and said, "You can't call her auntie. She's your grandma." The little fellow said innocently, "Grandma? But shouldn't all grannies use crutches? This grandma is too young." Qin Haodong said, "You're talking about an old grandma. This is your real grandma. Hurry up and call her grandma." Although the little fellow was a little puzzled, she still called out obediently, "Hello, grandma." "All right. Good. Let grandma see my good granddaughter." Chu Xianyue liked Tang Tang very much. She held her in her arms and kissed her little face again and again. She had a son and now a granddaughter, which made her so happy that she could not close her mouth. Then Qin Haodong introduced Lin Momo and Han Jiu to everyone present. After that, the little fellow became the core of the whole family. Everyone surrounded her and laughed. After a while, Zhang Tinya ran in from outside and said to Qin Haodong, "Boss, Mr. Chu Xuanli is here." Hearing that it was his uncle, Chu Xianyue and Qin Haodong went out to welcome him and took him into another living room. After sitting down and chatting for a while, Chu Xuanli said, "Xianyue, Haodong, tomorrow is the old master's 80th birthday. I specially came to invite you." Thinking that Chu Shanhe was her father after all, Chu Xianyue sighed. She was about to agree, but Qin Haodong raised his hand to stop her. He said, "Uncle, it's the old master's birthday. Logically speaking, we should go back, but my mother was driven out by the Chu family. It's not appropriate for us to go back so casually, isn't it? Chu Xuanli's heart skipped a beat. When he came here, Chu Shanhe had already expected this. He knew that Qin Haodong was not an easy person to invite. It seemed that it was true. He said, Haodong, the old master also said that it was indeed the Chu family's fault. If you have any conditions, just put forward them and we will definitely agree to all of them. Qin Haodong said, we should invite my mother back in the same way that she was driven out. For the sake of the old master's birthday, I won't ask him to come here in person. But we can't avoid the procedure. The Chu family must take my mother back in a grand manner and let everyone in the capital know that we were invited back by the Chu family. And when we return to the Chu family, the old master will welcome us at the door in person. Well, Chu Xuanli said, it's not a problem to take my little sister home. When the time comes, your second uncle and I will personally lead the team to visit her. We will definitely let her go back in a grand manner. But isn't it inappropriate for the old master to welcome us at the door? Qin Haodong stopped Chu Shenyue, who wanted to speak, with his eyes and said lightly, you can pass on my conditions. If the Chu family agrees, we will go back. If they don't, then forget it. He naturally had his own purpose for doing this. With the intrigue of the big families, his mother must have a lot of sarcastic remarks when she returned. If Chu Shanhe could go to the gate to welcome him personally, others would have to weigh their own weight before they had any bad ideas. All right then, I'll call the old man now and ask. Chu Xuanli did not dare to make a decision on his own. He dialed Chu Shanhe's number. After hearing Qin Haodong's request, Chu Shanhe was silent for a while and then said, promise him that as long as Shenyue and Haodong are willing to come back, it's not a big deal for me to welcome them at the door in person. Although he was very unwilling, the Tang sect's position as the overlord of the imperial capital had already been established. The 7 great families were all fighting to curry favor with them, so he had no right to refuse. After hanging up the phone, Chu Xuanli came back and said, the old master has agreed. We'll do as you say. Qin Haodong nodded and said, well, that's a deal. I'll go back with my mother to celebrate her birthday tomorrow. Chu Xuanli turned around and was about to leave when Qin Haodong stopped him. Uncle, come with me. After that, he greeted Chu Shenyue and took Chu Xuanli to the quiet room next door. At the same time, he asked someone to bring Chu Mingli, and Hui also called him over. Chu Xuanli was slightly stunned when he saw his son and daughter. It had only been a few days, but he felt that the 2 children had changed dramatically. Even their spirit and temperament seemed to be different. Your cultivation has increased? Chu Mingli nodded. Cousin Tang Wulin helped us increase our cultivation ranks as soon as we arrived at the Tang sect, and he's completely stabilized over the past few days. Chu Minghui happily held her father's arm and said, my brother and I have both improved by 3 levels. Cousin Haodong is really amazing. Chu Xuanli was shocked at first, but then he secretly rejoiced. It seemed that he had made the right decision to leave the 2 children in the Tang sect. If he had asked them to go back that day, they would probably have no future in the future. He said to Qin Haodong gratefully, thank you, Haodong. Uncle, don't be so polite to me. It's my duty to help my cousins. Chu Minghui said with a smile, Cousin Haodong, why did you call us here? Do you want to help us improve our cultivation ranks? Chu Xuanli glared at her and scolded, you're talking nonsense again. Do you think improving your cultivation ranks is a game? It's easy to improve. Qin Haodong smiled and said, Uncle, my cousin is right. Now I want to help you improve your cultivation ranks. He used to be a level 9 Supreme Power Master, so it was already the limit for Chu Xuanli to reach the 8th level of the Supreme Power Realm. But now he was a warrior at the early stage of the Yuaning realm, so it was not difficult for him to help the father and daughter go further. Chu Xuanli said doubtfully, Haodong, can this work? Recently, our cultivation ranks have improved too fast and our state of mind can't keep up. Will it cause our foundation to be unstable and we will be possessed by the devil? Qin Haodong said confidently, don't worry, uncle. I'm sure that as long as I'm here, you won't be possessed by the devil. Chu Minghui also said, yes, Dad, you must believe in Cousin Haodong. He's very capable. The little girl now had a blind admiration for Qin Haodong. She felt that there was nothing her cousin couldn't do. Of course I believe in your cousin. I'm just asking casually. After saying that, Chu Xuanli sat down cross-legged on the ground. Chu Mingli and Chu Ming also sat next to him. Qin Haodong took out 3 spirit culturing pills for the 3 of them to take and then began to help them improve their cultivation ranks. With his help, the genuine qi of the 3 of them quickly improved again. Chu Xuanli entered the threshold of the 9th level of the Supreme Power Realm, while Chu Minghui and Chu Mingli also advanced to the 7th level of the Supreme Power Realm. However, after crossing the bottleneck, the expressions of the three of them immediately changed. It was as if they had seen something special. Sometimes they were scared, sometimes they giggled, and sometimes they cried. Qin Haodong knew that this was the manifestation of the breeding of inner demons. Just as Chu Xuanli had said, their cultivation ranks had improved too fast recently and their state of mind was unstable. It was easy for inner demons to breed and make them fall into an illusion. If they did not get rid of this situation as soon as possible, they would really be possessed by the devil. But this was naturally not a problem for Qin Haodong. He had already prepared for this. He stretched out his right hand and the devil-vanquishing wand appeared in his palm. After the devil-vanquishing wand appeared, it immediately sensed the inner demons of the three of them. The 12 strings of coins on the wand kept jingling and making all kinds of sounds. Soon, the inner demons of the three of them were suppressed. Qin Haodong nodded. This magic wand was indeed a treasure. With it by their side, it was impossible for them to be possessed by the devil. With the removal of the inner demons, the cultivation of the three gradually stabilized. About 10 minutes later, the three of them slowly opened their eyes. Feeling the power in his body, Chu Xuanli was so excited that he shed 2 lines of tears. For many years, he had been stuck at the bottleneck of the 6th level of the Supreme Power Realm. He thought that he would never be able to reach the 9th level of the Supreme Power Realm. He did not expect that after meeting his nephew he would rise 4 levels in a row in just a week, realizing the dream that many martial artists could not achieve in their lifetime. Haodong, uncle and his family, thank you very much. After Chu Xuanli finished speaking, he brought Chu Mingli and Chu Ming along. Hui bowed deeply to Qin Haodong. Uncle, what are you doing? Qin Haodong reached out and helped all 3 of them up. He had always been grateful. Since Chu Xuanli was good to his mother, he should be good to his family. Since tomorrow was Chu Shanhe's birthday, he did not ask Chu Xuanli to stay and asked Chu Mingli and Chu Minghui also followed them back to the Chu family. After the father and son left, Qin Haodong returned to Chu Xuanyue's room. Seeing her son coming, Chu Xuanyue said, Haodong, no matter what happens to the Chu family, he is my father and your grandfather after all. We can't be too shabby when we go back tomorrow. We have to prepare some gifts. She was in a very complicated mood now. She hated the Chu family but she was also happy to go home. After thinking for a long time, she decided that Chu Shanhe was her father after all. She had to prepare some gifts on his birthday. Qin Haodong said, Mom, you don't have to worry about this. I'll take care of the gifts. Well, I won't worry about it. Chu Xuanyue used to be a strong woman. She had done everything by herself over the years, but now that she had such an excellent son, she left everything to Qin Haodong. Soon it was dinner time. The family had a lively meal. After the meal, Qin Haodong took the little fellow away from the girls and brought her into the cultivation room. The little fellow blinked her big eyes, looked at Qin Haodong and asked, Papa, what are you going to play here? Chapter 7:16. Dad has a good thing for you. Qin Haodong turned his wrist and the flaming crystal appeared in his palm. Out of the innate instinct of the Suzaku sacred body, the little fellow immediately showed great interest in this small stone and reached out to grab it in her palm. If ordinary people held this kind of stone in their hands, they would immediately be burned into charcoal. Even Qin Haodong had to wrap it tightly with genuine qi. But when Tang Tang held it in her hand, not only was there no problem, but she also felt extremely comfortable. Papa, this little stone is so cute. Give it to me. The little fellow held the flaming crystal and couldn't bear to put it down. Qin Haodong said, Tang Tang, this is not how to use it. That's not how you use this stone. It can help your flames level up. Really? Papa, teach me how to use it. The little fellow didn't know much about upgrading, but she knew that the way her father gave her must be the best way. Qin Haodong asked the little fellow to sit cross-legged. He held the flaming crystal in his left palm and began to run the mental cultivation method of the Eyes of Phoenix. The Eyes of Phoenix was a unique skill of the Yuan sect, which belonged to the magical cultivation method. This cultivation method could be used in both directions. When it was run forward, it could spit out fire, and when it was run backward, it could absorb all the fire energy. Situ Zhaixing first passed this cultivation method to Qin Haodong, who passed it on to the little fellow on behalf of his master, so he was extremely proficient in the attributes of this cultivation method. Under his guidance, the little guy began to hold his breath and absorb the scarlet flame crystal. Qin Haodong stood quietly beside her, guarding his daughter. As time went by, the flaming crystal in the little fellow's palm became smaller and smaller, and finally turned into a mass of powder with a snap. The hot energy inside had all been absorbed by Tang Tang. The little fellow slowly opened her eyes and said to Qin Haodong excitedly, Papa, I feel as if there are a lot more things in my body. It's warm and comfortable. That's because your flame has improved again. Qin Haodong set a defensive restriction on the wall of the practice room and then said to the little fellow, Tang Tang, try it and see if the power of the flame has increased. Okay, Papa. The little fellow was still a child and was already eager to try. When Qin Haodong finished, she immediately opened her little mouth and spat out a phoenix-like flame. Previously, her flame had already been upgraded from an ordinary flame to an innate flame. The color of the flame had also changed from red to the innate flame's yellow color. This time, after absorbing the scarlet flame crystal, the level of his flame had greatly increased. Although it had yet to reach the blue level of the three true flame, the yellow flame was already faintly emitting a blue halo. It seemed that it was not far from the three true flame. The most important thing was that the increase in power was too great. After the flames were sprayed on the wall, they immediately heard a bang, and the restriction that Qin Haodong had set up was burned into nothingness. Fortunately, he was already prepared. He hurriedly made a hand seal and laid down 3 restrictions in a row. Otherwise this house would really be burnt down. Okay, Tang, the little fellow said. Qin Haodong hurriedly stopped the little fellow. Now he had experienced the power of this kind of flame. If it was a frontal attack, even his cultivation at the early stage of Yuanying realm might not be able to hold on for long. It seemed that the upgrade was very successful, which made Qin Haodong very happy. Because the little fellow was too young and immature, he had not been in a hurry to improve her cultivation. However, the upgrade of the flame was an opportunity that could only be encountered by chance. He had to seize it, otherwise it would be difficult to encounter it again in the future. Even so, the little fellow's strength was still terrifying. With the current eyes of Phoenix, if she attacked with all her strength, no one below the 9th level of the Supreme Power Realm could resist her. After praising the little fellow, Qin Haodong told her not to use fire on others casually and then took her out of the practice room. The next morning after breakfast, the whole Tang sect was busy. Today was Chu Shanhe's 80th birthday. At the request of Chu Xianyue, Qin Haodong decided to take all the women to the birthday party, including the little fellow. Knowing that they were going to attend the party, the girls all dressed up. Firstly, women love beauty. Secondly, although they all accepted each other's existence, they all had a faint sense of competition in their hearts. They were afraid that they would be outdone by others, so they dressed up very carefully. When these women appeared in front of Qin Haodong, he felt dizzy. At the same time, he felt very proud. Even the international model team was not as eye-catching as his women. They were both beautiful and had good figures. After 8 o'clock, a long motorcade drove into the Tang sect. The leader was Chu Xuanli, followed by Chu Xianming. The two of them were here to welcome Chu Xianyue back on behalf of the Chu family. The people of the Tang sect got into the cars. According to Qin Haodong's request, the motorcade did not drive directly back to the Chu family, but around the capital. There were as many as 100 cars in the motorcade prepared by Chu Xuanli, and each of them was a luxury car worth more than 5 million yuan. Wherever they passed, it immediately caused a sensation. People who did not understand asked about what had happened. Soon, the news that Chu Xianyue had been grandly taken back to the Chu family spread throughout the upper class of the capital. Many busybodies followed behind to watch the fun. It was not until 9 o'clock in the morning that the motorcade slowly drove to the Chu family's manor. At the gate of the manor, Chu Shanhe, who was dressed in a red Tang suit, was waiting there. Beside him stood Chu Shanchuan and Chu Shanhai. Behind them were hundreds of disciples of the Chu family, including Chu Mingtsong and Chu Mingjiao. After standing for a few minutes, Chu Mingtsong said discontentedly, "He really thinks he's a big shot. He made so many of us wait for him here. I don't know what Grandpa was thinking. He actually agreed to such an unreasonable request." Chu Mingjiao also said sarcastically, "That's right. This kind of person is arrogant and has no respect for his elders. He doesn't know the rules at all. Our Chu family should not let him in." Although they did not mention Qin Haodong, the people around knew that she was talking about him. Chu Mingli and Chu Ming were standing next to her. After a few days of contact, they respected Qin Haodong more and more in their hearts. Chu Mingli said, "Cousin, you're wrong. Aunt was originally a member of our Chu family. Back then we let her down and drove her out of the family. Now it's only right for us to take her back." Although Chu Mingtsong was Chu Xuanming's son, he was the eldest grandson of the Chu family because Chu Xianming had given birth very early. In addition, he was good at flattering others, so he was deeply loved by the old lady, Jin Xiuing. He had developed a spoiled personality since he was a child. Now seeing that Chu Mingli dared to contradict him in public, he immediately shouted with a sullen face, You've been in the Tang sect for a few days and your temper has grown. You haven't learned anything else but that guy's arrogance. I'm your brother. How can you talk to me like that? Chu Ming, who was outspoken, Hui shouted, I think you're the arrogant one. Cousin Haodong is a really capable person. He established the Tang sect with his own strength at a young age. Look at you. Apart from relying on your family to eat, drink and gamble, what else can you do? Seeing that her brother was being criticized, Chu Mingjiao also stood up and shouted rudely, You little girl, what do you know? You've only been there for a few days but you're already speaking up for that guy. Do you like that gigolo boy? Are you shameless? Chu Minghui was a straightforward and hot-tempered person, but she was not as generous as Chu Mingli. She immediately retorted, Chu Mingjiao, I think you're the shameless one. Do you think everyone else is as dirty as you? You've had more than a dozen abortions in your 20s. Are you shameless? Although Chu Mingjiao was not married yet, her behavior was a mess. She was indeed like Chu Ming. Just like what Hui had said, she had had more than a dozen abortions in her 20s. However, this kind of thing was usually talked about in private. Now that it was pointed out in public, she could not bear it. Little b****, how dare you say that to me? Seeing the ridiculing eyes around her, Chu Mingjiao could no longer control herself and jumped at Chu Ming. Wait. But now Chu Minghui was already at the 7th level of the Supreme Power Realm, so she did not take her seriously at all. She just raised her hand and slapped her away. This time her high-heeled shoes were also broken. Her hair was disheveled and her face was covered with dirt. She looked like a ghost. Chu Shanhe stood in front and was thinking about how to make Qin Haodong satisfied when he came. He did not expect that his backyard would be on fire before Qin Haodong arrived. Seeing that his sister was being beaten, Chu Mingtsong was about to rush up to Chu Ming. Hui was about to make a move when she heard Chu Shanhe shout angrily, Everyone stop! Seeing that their grandfather was really angry, the younger generation of the Chu family all trembled and stood there, not daring to speak. Chu Shanhe looked at Chu Minghui and then at Chu Mingjiao. Hui then looked at Chu Mingjiao. Tell me what's going on. Chu Minghui said first, Grandpa, the two of them were insulting cousin Haodong here. We argued with him but they beat me. Chu Shanhe glanced at Chu Mingtsong and Chu Mingjiao coldly. Is that so? Chu Mingjiao felt that she had been wronged. At home she was usually very arrogant and spoiled by Chu Shanhe. She got up from the ground and shouted, Grandpa, why did that little bastard come back to our Chu family? I just said a few words. What's wrong with that? Why did she hit me? As soon as she said this, there was a bang and Chu Mingjiao's body flew out again. This time she flew farther and fell harder than last time. But this time it was not Chu Ming. It was Chu Shanhe himself. Chu Mingtsong originally wanted to say a few words, but when he saw that his grandfather was really angry, he immediately shut his mouth and did not dare to say a word. Chu Shanhe had spent a lot of effort to invite Qin Haodong back to the Chu family. How could he allow these ignorant juniors to destroy his plan? He said sternly, I tell you, Qin Haodong is the grandson of our Chu family. No one is allowed to question him. If anyone dares to provoke him again, he will be expelled from the Chu family. After this small disturbance, everyone could see Chu Shanhe's attitude, so no one dared to show disrespect to Qin Haodong anymore. However, this was only on the surface. Most of the Chu family were still extremely opposed to the return of Chu Xianyue and her son, especially those who were ambitious for the position of the family master. They always felt that Qin Haodong was their biggest threat. Not long after, the motorcade that welcomed Qin Haodong came back. Under everyone's gaze, Chu Shanhe opened the door and took Chu Xianyue out. Xianyue, welcome back to the Chu family. Although she knew that the father in front of her was pretending for his son, Chu Xianyue was still moved when she saw the place where she had lived since she was a child. Her eyes became wet. Chu Xuanli said, Well, this is not the place to talk. Let's go in quickly. During the grand welcome ceremony, Qin Haodong followed Chu Xianyue and they walked to the Chu family's manor together. Chapter 717. In the spacious hall of the Chu family, Jin Xiuying sat there with a gloomy face. She did not look happy at all. Chu Xianyue walked into the hall and her expression changed several times when she saw Jin Xiuying. Although this person was her biological mother, she had brought her far more pain than happiness over the years. After hesitating for a while, she finally walked over and said, Mom, I'm back. Different from the ordinary mother-daughter relationship, the old lady did not show any joy after seeing her daughter who she had not seen for more than 20 years. On the contrary, a strong look of disgust flashed across her face. In the face of Chu Xuanyue's greeting, she just snorted, then turned her head and kept fiddling with the prayer beads in her hand. Qin Haodong had heard his mother mention all kinds of ruthlessness many times before. Today he finally saw it with his own eyes. A cold light flashed in his eyes. Chu Xianyue originally wanted Qin Haodong to greet the old lady with his daughter-in-law, but seeing her attitude, she immediately dispelled this idea. Since the old lady had given them the cold shoulder, there was no need to rush to greet her. Seeing that the atmosphere had fallen into an awkward situation, Chu Xuanli hurriedly said, "Since my little sister is back, please sit down." Fortunately, because of Chu Shanha's firm attitude, the other members of the Chu family were still warm to Chu Xianyue, at least on the surface. After sitting down, some cousins immediately surrounded them and kept talking. Chu Xianyue and her daughters-in-law mingled with the women of the Chu family. They greeted them one after another and chatted about daily life. It was quite lively, but Qin Haodong's side was deserted. Only Chu Mingli was sitting here with him. The younger generation of the Chu family, led by Chu Mingtsong, were still very resistant to Qin Haodong's return. Seeing this scene, they secretly sneered in their hearts. "I can't afford to offend you, but I'll ignore you. Let's see if you are embarrassed or not." Qin Haodong did not care about it anymore. He leisurely drank tea and ate dessert and melon seeds. In his opinion, it was best that these people did not come, which saved a lot of trouble. As time went by, more and more guests came to the Chu family to congratulate them. Chu Mingli also got up and followed Chu Xuanli to entertain the guests. Only Qin Haodong was left at the huge dining table. A sneer flashed across Chu Mingsong's face. "Aren't you awesome? Aren't you good at martial arts? Even if I don't use violence, I can still toy you to death." At this moment, the MC at the door shouted, "The Han family's patriarch Han Wuji has arrived." Everyone present was slightly taken aback when they heard this loud and clear shout. In the past, when the heads of the 7 great clans celebrated their birthday, the other clans would only send a second-generation disciple to congratulate them. It was very rare for the heads of the clans to come personally. They did not expect that Han Wuji would come personally today. After being slightly stunned, Chu Xianming immediately went forward and brought Han Wuji into the hall. Surrounded by many people, Han Wuji walked into the hall and said to Chu Shanha, who was sitting at the head of the table, "Patriarch Chu, I wish you a long life." The other party was also the head of a family, so Chu Shanha did not dare to be arrogant at all. He stood up and said, "Patriarch Han, I'm just celebrating my birthday. It's really an honor for you to come in person." Han Wuji only gave a simple greeting and then looked around the crowd. Chu Xianming quickly stepped forward and said, "Master Han, please take a seat in the VIP seat." With Han Wuji's identity, he was definitely one of the guests with the highest status. Logically speaking, he should sit in the VIP seat. However, he did not pay any attention to Chu Xianming next to him. Under the gaze of many people, he strode to the ordinary seats next to him. Seeing Qin Haodong sitting here alone, he immediately understood the meaning behind it. He could not help but feel happy. Although Qin Haodong had come to the Chu family, the relationship between them was not harmonious. This was definitely good news for the other aristocratic families. If the Chu family had the strong support of the Tang sect, they would not have any chance. The reason why he came to Chu Shanha's birthday today was to get closer to Qin Haodong. It seemed that this strategy was the right one. "Mr. Qin, do I have the honor to sit with you?" Qin Haodong looked up at Han Wuji. After all, he was Han Jiu's grandfather and this old man had always been tactful. He nodded, pointed to the seat next to him and said, "Sit down." Seeing that Qin Haodong agreed, Han Wuji sat next to him with a happy face. Chu Shanha sat in the main seat and could not help but feel annoyed when he saw all this. The descendants of the Chu family were really idiots. He had tried his best to invite Qin Haodong, but they could not see the importance of this overlord of the capital. If the juniors of the Chu family gathered around Qin Haodong at this time, Han Wuji would not be able to drive them away. But now, others had benefited from it. At this moment, Qi Guofan, the master of the Qi family, and Zhao Zhangqiong, the master of the Zhao family, arrived one after another. After a simple greeting, the 2 old men also ran to Qin Haodong and sat down next to him. It didn't take long for the masters of the 7 great families of the capital to gather together, but the other 6 gathered around Qin Haodong and talked to him like stars surrounding the moon. Qin Haodong just responded indifferently. At this time, even if the Chu family was stupid, they could see that the purpose of the 6 families was not to celebrate the birthday, but to please Qin Haodong. Chu Shanha's face was livid. He tried his best to let Chu Xianyue and her son return in order to prove his relationship with the Tang sect to the other aristocratic families. As a result, these old foxes could see that the relationship between the Chu family and the Tang sect was not so harmonious. It was simply a waste of all their previous efforts. But there was no other way. After all, it was a birthday banquet and there were many guests. He could only endure it and wait for the end of the birthday banquet to teach these ignorant juniors a lesson. The complacency on Chu Mingsong's face had disappeared. Originally, he wanted to see Qin Haodong embarrassed and humiliated, but now the masters of the 6 great families surrounded him like stars surrounding the moon. It was not a humiliation but a kind of show-off. With the arrival of the guests, it was almost time. Next, it was time for the juniors to present birthday gifts to the old master. The MC shouted, "Next, let's invite the filial sons and grandsons of the Chu family to present gifts." According to the order of presenting gifts, the eldest son should go first. Chu Xuanli was also prepared. He held a big red gift box in his hand and said, "Father, today is your birthday. I wish you happiness and longevity." The family members standing next to him immediately stepped forward and took the gift box in their hands. At this moment, Chu Xianming, who was standing next to him, said, "Brother, should we show our gift to Father in public and let the guests see our filial piety?" Chu Xuanli hesitated for a moment and said, "Well, please excuse us." After that, he reached out and opened the gift box. There was a jade Buddha statue inside. The jade Buddha statue was about 20 centimeters high and was made of high-quality mutton fat jade. It looked crystal clear and it was obviously a good thing. After seeing the jade Buddha statue, the surrounding guests immediately began to talk about it. It's still the Chu family after all. Their son's gift is a jade Buddha statue. It's really extraordinary. In my opinion, this jade Buddha statue is worth at least millions of yuan. How is it possible? Such a big mutton fat jade Buddha statue is worth at least 10 million yuan. Chu Shanhe also nodded with satisfaction. Obviously, he was very satisfied with his son's gift. After the display, the family members put away the jade Buddha statue. It was Chu Xuanming's turn to present his gift. Everyone looked at him with interest and did not know what gift he had prepared for the old master. "Bring it up." Chu Xuanli waved his hand behind him and Chu Mingtsong immediately came up with a huge gift box with 2 family members. It looked quite heavy. Under everyone's puzzled eyes, Chu Xianming opened the gift box and saw that there was also a jade Buddha statue inside. However, this jade Buddha statue was about 50 centimeters high. It was much better than Chu Xuanli's in terms of material and size. The guests burst into an uproar. "Oh my God, such a big jade Buddha statue, how much does it cost? Second young master is really generous. Not to mention the craftsmanship of the jade Buddha statue, such a big piece of jade is worth more than 100 million yuan. This jade Buddha statue is really beautiful. It's definitely a rare thing." Hearing everyone's praise, Chu Xianming said proudly, "Father, I knew that you were going to celebrate your 80th birthday, so I asked people to look for this piece of good jade for 3 years. I also invited famous craftsmen to carve this jade Buddha statue for you as a birthday gift. It means that our Chu family will be blessed with Buddha's light in the future and that you will be healthy and live a long life. It's rare for you to be so considerate." A bright smile bloomed on Chu Shanhe's face. Obviously, he was extremely satisfied with this reason. Chu Xuanli's face instantly darkened. He was just generous, but he was not stupid. Chu Xianming chose the same gift as him and took the initiative to show it to the public. It was obvious that he wanted to trample on him. Chu Xianming turned his head and said proudly, "Brother, I'm really sorry. I didn't discuss it with you before. Look, our gifts are the same." In recent days, with the improvement of Chu Xuanli's cultivation, his status in the family was getting higher and higher. It was obvious that he was inferior to him. Today's gift was carefully planned by him. He had already heard that Chu Xuanli had prepared a jade Buddha statue, so he specially asked someone to make a bigger one with better material. His purpose was to surpass Chu Xuanli in front of everyone. Chu Xianyue, who was standing next to him, secretly shook her head. After so many years, her second brother still liked to play tricks. He even did not let go of his own elder brother. He had just trampled on his elder brother, so she was afraid that she would be the next one. Thinking of this, she turned to look at Qin Haodong next to her and said, "Son, have you prepared our gifts?" Qin Haodong smiled slightly and said, "Don't worry. I'll handle everything. I won't let you lose face." As expected, as soon as they finished speaking, Chu Xianming turned around and looked at Chu Xianyue with a sinister smile. He said, "Little sister, it's time for you to show your filial piety." Seeing that Chu Xianyue and Qin Haodong's hands were empty, he pretended to be surprised and said, "Little sister, today is Father's 80th birthday. Don't tell me you didn't even prepare a gift?" Chu Xianyue looked embarrassed and turned to look at Qin Haodong. Qin Haodong gave his mother a comforting look, then took 2 steps forward and said to Chu Xianming, Do you mean that if I don't prepare a gift for the old master, it means that I'm not filial? Does the old master value money so much that he distinguishes the filial piety of his children according to the size of the gift? Chu Xianming wanted to improve his status in the family through the jade Buddha statue he had carefully prepared, but now he was blushed by Qin Haodong's words. If he said that Qin Haodong was right, then his gift would be prepared in vain. If he denied Qin Haodong's statement, it would be tantamount to saying that his father was a greedy person. At this time Jin Xiaoying, who was sitting next to Chu Shanha, snorted and said, "You're so eloquent. Of course, our Chu family does not distinguish filial piety by gifts, but it's basic etiquette to send a birthday gift on the birthday of the elder. If you haven't prepared a gift, don't stand here and argue irrationally." Chapter 7:18. Over the years she valued sons more than daughters, but between her two sons she loved her youngest son the most. Seeing that Chu Xianming was frightened, she immediately stood up for him. Chu Xianming also came to his senses and said with a sneer, "Although gifts do not fully represent filial piety, we still have to show basic etiquette. This is our duty as juniors. Don't you think so, little sister?" Chu Xianyue nodded awkwardly and turned to look at Qin Haodong. She did not know what her son was up to. Since he had prepared a gift, why didn't he take it out? The others also looked over with curiosity, surprise, sarcasm and ridicule in their eyes. Could it be that the mother and son really didn't bring anything when they returned to the Chu family? Of course, Chu Shanha did not dare to expect Qin Haodong to give him any valuable gift. When he was about to say something, he heard Qin Haodong say, "Of course I have a gift. I'll show you now." After that he turned to Chu Xuanli, Chu Mingli and Chu Ming. Hui and the other two said, "First uncle, please come over with cousin and cousin." Now the people present were even more curious. Why did he ask Chu Xuanli to take the gift? Some people also saw the mystery from the way he addressed Chu Xuanli. Since Qin Haodong stepped into the Chu family, he only called Chu Xuanli uncle, which meant that he only recognized him as a relative. Chu Xuanli was also a little confused, but he still followed Qin Haodong's request and took Chu Mingli and Chu Ming with him. They walked to the center of the hall. Qin Haodong said to Chu Shanha, "Master of the Chu family, this is my gift for your 80th birthday." These words caused an uproar. What does this kid mean? Could it be that he's crazy? Using the grandpa's grandson as a congratulatory gift, only this person can do it. It's really too funny. It's fine if you can't take out a gift, but you're doing such a strange thing. Isn't this a disgrace? Chu Xianming sneered and said, "Haodong, what do you mean? Using our Chu family as a congratulatory gift? Are you saying that you don't treat our Chu family as human beings?" His words were extremely sharp and immediately pushed Qin Haodong to the teeth of the storm. Qin Haodong ignored him and said to Chu Mingli and Hui said, Cousin, show me your cultivation." The Chu siblings nodded their heads and immediately operated their true qi. A huge imposing aura burst out from their bodies, forcing the surrounding guests to step back. A 7th-level Supreme Power Master. The expressions of Chu Shanha and the other 6 patriarchs changed drastically when they saw the scene before them. Although the cultivation of a 7th-level Supreme Power Master was high, it was not the top among the big families. However, he was only a young man in his 20s. Hui was only 18 years old, and it was extremely rare to have this kind of cultivation. Such a young man would definitely become a mainstay of the aristocratic families in the future when he grew up. Especially Chu Shanha, he knew the cultivation of his grandson and granddaughter. Just a few days ago they were only at the 2nd level of the Supreme Power Realm and the 3rd level of the Supreme Power Realm. He didn't expect that they would become 7th-level Supreme Power Masters in just a few days. How could he not be shocked? Chu Xuanming's face instantly turned cold. After working hard for so many years, coupled with the spirit culturing pill he bought a few days ago, he had just entered the 7th level of the Supreme Power Realm. But the 2 juniors in front of him had only stayed in the Tang sect for a few days and they were also 7th level Supreme Power Masters. How could he have any advantage? Qin Haodong looked at Chu Shanha and smiled slightly. "Patriarch Chu, are you satisfied with this gift?" Yes. Chu Shanha nodded repeatedly and was so happy that he couldn't close his mouth. For so many years, the Chu family's lack of young and old had been his biggest worry. Now that his granddaughter and grandson had grown up, the predicament was immediately alleviated. "Don't worry, there's more." Qin Haodong said to Chu Xuanli, "Uncle, it's your turn." At this moment, Chu Xuanli already understood Qin Haodong's intention. No wonder he was in a hurry to help them improve their cultivation yesterday. It turned out that he had already made arrangements. He no longer suppressed his cultivation. Under the operation of his true chi, a huge imposing aura belonging to a 9th-level Supreme Power Master burst out and instantly swept the whole place. Oh my god, he's actually a 9th-level Supreme Power Master. The patriarchs of the 7 great clans all stood up. Their expressions changed drastically. Chu Mingli and Chu Ming were just potential stocks and had not yet grown up, but Chu Xuanli's 9th-level Supreme Power Master was completely different. This represented the strength of an aristocratic family. Chu Shanchuan and Chu Shanhai, who had been sitting behind Chu Shanhe, stood up excitedly. He was a 9th-level Supreme Power Master who belonged to the Chu family. From now on, except for the Tang sect among the 7 great families, only they had 3 9th-level Supreme Power Masters. This was definitely a reflection of their strength. Chu Xuanli withdrew his imposing aura and then led Chu Mingli and Chu Ming to the side. Satoshi retreated to the side, leaving the guests who were still dumbfounded. Qin Haodong looked at Chu Shanhe and said, "Patriarch Chu, what do you think of my gift? Is it comparable to the Jade Buddha statue just now?" Only then did Chu Shanhe recover from the shock. He beamed with joy and said, "Great, it's really great. This is the best gift I've received today. Even 1,000 Jade Buddha statues or 10,000 Jade Buddha statues can't compare to it." Before this, he had told a family member to put his gift in the most conspicuous position so that the guests would pay attention to him at all times. The family member also followed his arrangement and put the Jade Buddha statue on top of the other gifts. As the saying goes, the higher you put it, the harder it will fall. At this time, the valuable Jade Buddha statue had become a pile of pieces and had no value to speak of. Jin Xiaoying was already in a bad mood and she was full of anger. At this time, when she saw the Jade Buddha statue was broken, she immediately roared, "What's going on? Who did it?" Seeing the old lady fly into a rage, more than a dozen children standing there dispersed. In the end, only Tang Tang and Chu Yuliang, whom she met at the airport, were left. As the saying goes, love the house and its crow. Because of her preference for Chu Xianming, Jin Xiaoying also doted on her great-grandson very much. Her tone softened a little and she said, "Yuliang, tell me who broke this Jade Buddha statue." Chu Yuliang looked embarrassed. I. After a while, he suddenly raised his hand and pointed to Tang Tang next to him. "It's her. She broke the Jade Buddha statue." After all, the little fellow was just a 4-year-old child. She was stunned when she saw this kind of thing. After hearing Chu Yuliang's words, she quickly waved her hand and said, "It's not me. It's not me," but Jin Xiaoying did not care about this. She immediately shouted to the family next to her, "No matter whose child it is, beat her hard for breaking the Jade Buddha statue of the master." Because of the chaos at the scene, no one knew who had brought this lovely little girl. But when they heard that Jin Xiaoying wanted to beat such a little child, everyone looked at each other and secretly cursed that this old woman was really vicious. However, Jin Xiaoying had accumulated a lot of power in the Chu family. These juniors and relatives of the Chu family did not dare to say anything. After all, it had nothing to do with them. They just needed to watch. Although the 2 family members were very helpless, they did not dare to disobey Jin Xiaoying's orders. They could only reach out to grab Tang Tang. Facing 2 tall and strong adults, the little fellow was a little scared. She stood there in a daze and did not know what to do for a moment. At this moment, a loud shout full of anger was heard, "Whoever dares to touch my daughter, I will kill him." Then a huge momentum burst out in an instant, directly sending the 2 family members flying and knocking over countless gifts again. Under everyone's surprised eyes, Qin Haodong stepped over and reached out to hold the little fellow in his arms. Seeing the broken gifts, Jin Xiaoying was even more furious. Her body trembled all over. She raised her hand and pointed at Qin Haodong, shouting, "You're rebelling. You're rebelling." At this time, the frightened little fellow reached out and hugged Qin Haodong's neck. She whispered in his ear, "Papa, it wasn't Tang Tang who broke it. It was that little brother riding a scooter. He broke the Jade Buddha statue." Qin Haodong turned his head to look at Chu Yuliang. It was true that dragons gave birth to dragons and phoenixes gave birth to phoenixes. Chu Xuanming's grandson had been so scheming since he was a child. He had caused trouble and blamed it on his daughter. Chu Yuliang was shocked when he saw the look in Qin Haodong's eyes. He hurriedly ran to Jin Xiaoying's side, hugged her thigh and shouted, "Great-grandmother, it was not me. It was Tang Tang who broke it." Jin Xiaoying believed her great-grandson's words. She had been holding a grudge against Qin Haodong for a long time. At this time, it exploded in an instant and she even lost her mind. A bastard is a bastard. Her daughter is still a bastard. She has no manners at all. How dare she break the Jade Buddha statue of the old master? Come on, beat them together. She had lost her mind, but others did not. Qin Haodong was not someone they could afford to provoke. Although she shouted happily, no one dared to move. Chapter 719. What Qin Haodong hated most was being called a bastard. What he cared about the most was the daughter in his arms. Now the vicious old lady in front of him had called his daughter and himself a bastard, which had completely pierced his bottom line. The murderous aura on his body suddenly condensed and spread out, making it hard for everyone in the hall to breathe. Chu Xianyue rushed over and stood in front of Qin Haodong. Haodong, don't be impulsive. No matter what, this was her biological mother. She could not watch her die in the hands of her son. Jin Xiaoying was frightened by the soaring murderous aura at first, but when she saw Chu Xianyue rushing over, she immediately shouted more fearlessly, "Bastard, you're a bastard. You don't know how to respect the elders and don't know the family rules." Before she could finish speaking, Qin Haodong flicked his fingers and a few gusts of wind shot out. Jin Xiaoying stood there like a wooden sculpture and could no longer make a sound. Chu Xianyue was shocked and quickly cried out, "Haodong, what did you do to her?" "Don't worry, I just hit her acupoints to make her mute." Qin Haodong had just sealed several acupoints of Jin Xiaoying. If he let the vicious old lady continue, he really could not control the killing intent in his heart and kill her with a sword. At this time Chu Xianming came over. He did not dare to face Qin Haodong, so he said to Chu Xianyue with a gloomy face, "Little sister, your granddaughter broke my jade Buddha statue. Can't I say a few words?" Chu Xianyue immediately said, "Is this a matter of saying a few words? Tang Tang is still so young and she actually wanted to hurt her. Is it wrong for Haodong to stop her?" Chu Xianming said with a cold face, "Anyway, this is the jade Buddha statue that I carefully collected. It's a birthday gift for the old master. It was broken just like that. Shouldn't there be an explanation?" Chu Xianyue said, "Isn't it just a jade Buddha statue? We'll pay for it." Chu Xianming sneered and said, "Pay for it? This is not about money at all. Do you know how much manpower and financial resources I spent to collect such a big piece of jade? Now it has been broken. Can you find me such a big piece of jade?" Chu Xianyue was speechless for a moment. She was not short of money, but it was really not easy to find such a big piece of jade. Qin Haodong said, "Do you think this jade Buddha is great?" Chu Xianming said, "Of course. I spent 300 million yuan on this raw stone alone. With the craftsmanship of a skilled craftsman, it will cost at least 500 million yuan. And this is only a preliminary estimate. No matter how much money you have, you can't buy such a good thing." Qin Haodong smiled disdainfully. He turned to the outside of the hall and waved his hand saying, "Bring it up." The surrounding people were extremely surprised, not knowing what he was going to carry up. At this time, Zhang Tiniu came in with 8 other security guards of Daddy's security company carrying a big box. The big box was about 2 meters square and looked very heavy. No one knew what was inside. Qin Haodong asked several people to put the box in the middle of the hall, and then open the packaging and lid. A huge jade Buddha appeared in front of everyone. "Oh my God, how can there be such a huge jade Buddha in this world? My God, what did I see? Such a big piece of jade, and it's of the ice type. The knife skills of this jade Buddha are so good. It's obviously made by a master. It's much better than the small jade Buddha just now." There was no harm without comparison. As soon as Qin Haodong's jade Buddha appeared, Chu Xuanming's jade Buddha became pitifully small. It was crushed into pieces in terms of craftsmanship and material. This jade Buddha was the Jade King that Qin Haodong had brought back from Myanmar. He had been left in Jiangnan and asked Su Haichuan and his son to carve it. It had just been carved in a few days and sent to the capital. Qin Haodong glanced at Chu Xianming, who was stunned, and said, "How is it? How is my jade Buddha compared to yours?" Chu Xianming came to his senses and there was a flash of greed in his eyes. He said, "Yes, it can be used as compensation for my jade Buddha." As soon as he finished speaking, the guests next to him immediately burst into an uproar. How can there be such a shameless person? This jade Buddha is worth at least billions of yuan. It's much better than his. That's right. This is the supreme jade Buddha. What's his? It's nothing compared to this. You're so thick-skinned. How can you say such a thing? Aren't you blackmailing us? Qin Haodong looked up and glanced around. He looked at Chu Shanhe, who was silent next to him, and said coldly, "This jade Buddha was originally a gift I prepared for my mother today. If the Chu family treated me with courtesy and let my mother feel the value of family affection, this jade Buddha would be nothing. But you also saw how the Chu family treated my mother and my son since we entered the door. Has this vicious old lady ever treated my mother as a daughter? Although you seem to be polite, it's not family affection. You're just afraid of my strength. Therefore, the Chu family doesn't deserve my jade Buddha at all. They can only bring it back to our Tang sect. After the guests saw this jade Buddha, they immediately knew that it was worth at least billions of yuan. At this time they all felt sorry for the Chu family. It's a pity. The Chu family really doesn't know how lucky they are. They have such a good daughter and such a good grandson, but they actually drove them out. They deserve it. That old lady is really unreasonable. She doesn't even have any family affection for her daughter. Isn't she her own daughter? She's not only unreasonable but also vicious. Such a young child is so cute, but she still wants to hurt him. This kind of patriarchal thinking is really disgusting. Hearing the discussion around them, the masters of the other 6 great families all smiled happily. Just now, Qin Haodong had helped the Chu family create a 9th-level Supreme Power Master, and they were still very nervous. They were afraid that with the support of the Tang sect, the Chu family would be above the other great families. Now it seemed that there was no need to worry about anything. The Chu family was stupid enough to drive Chu Xianyue and her son out. Chu Shanha also realized the seriousness of the problem and quickly said, Haodong, listen to what you said. In fact, this is all a misunderstanding. Misunderstanding? How can there be a misunderstanding? Qin Haodong said, this jade Buddha was broken. The old lady did not ask about the truth at all. You believed whatever the Chu family said. My daughter wanted to defend herself, but you did not give her a chance at all. Is this a misunderstanding? Chu Xinming said, in fact it was your daughter who broke this jade Buddha. What else is there to defend? Qin Haodong glared at him coldly and then waved his hand to call the family member who was guarding the gifts over. He directly used the mind-manipulating skill and asked, tell everyone, how did this jade Buddha break? The family member said, it was young Master Yuliang. He has been playing with his scooter here. We tried to stop him several times but we failed. In the end he broke the jade Buddha. This little girl was wronged. Qin Haodong looked at Chu Yuliang, who was peeping from the side. Tell me the truth. Who broke the jade Buddha? Chu Yuliang said, I broke it, but I was afraid of being punished. Grandpa and Dad hate the little girl's father very much, so I said that she did it. He glanced at Jin Xiaoying, whose acupoints had been sealed, and then turned to look at Chu Shanha. Did you hear that? Is this the misunderstanding you mentioned? Chu Shanha was speechless. At this time he hated his disappointing son very much. He was thinking about how to save the situation in front of him when he heard Chu Xianming shouting hysterically, Qin Haodong, what are you so arrogant about? Don't think that you can become an aristocratic family just because you have some masters. Let me tell you, the strength of the aristocratic families is beyond your imagination. Today I will let you stay in prison. As soon as he said this, the family masters of the other 6 aristocratic families almost laughed out loud. They were very happy to see the Chu family and the Tang sect officially fall out. At this time, 4 or 5 uniformed policemen came in from outside. After entering the door they asked, who is Qin Haodong? I am. Qin Haodong answered and then looked at Chu Xianming with a sneer. It seems that you have been planning to deal with me for a long time. Chu Xianming said proudly, today I will teach you a lesson. I will let you know that you can laugh in the end with your brains. Qin Haodong smiled slightly and said, okay, then I will learn from you. At this time the policeman walked up to Qin Haodong. The middle-aged police officer in the lead said, I am Gao Feng, the deputy captain of the crime squad in the eastern district of the capital. Someone reported that you killed someone on purpose. Please cooperate with us for the investigation. After hearing Gao Feng's words, the others suddenly fell silent. They could not accept the accusation of killing someone on purpose. Once it was confirmed, they were afraid that they would really have to stay in prison for the rest of their lives. The family masters of the other 6 aristocratic families had a sarcastic smile on their faces. It was a despicable way to use the power of the government in the battle between the aristocratic families. They really did not know if Chu Xianming had lost his mind. How could he call such a stupid way of doing things with brains? Qin Haodong did not look flustered at all. He said calmly, Officer, who did I kill? Who is the witness? Before Gao Feng could speak, Chu Xianming shouted, at the engagement party of the Qi family, you killed Master Yuan Tianren with your own hands. Qin Haodong looked at him coldly and said, I killed him. Did you see it? Hearing this, Gao Feng also turned to look at Chu Xianming. Although I didn't see it, many people present saw it. Chu Xianming pointed to the family masters of the 6 aristocratic families next to Qin Haodong and said, you all saw it with your own eyes. Gao Feng looked at Han Wuji, who was the closest to him, and asked, Sir, did you see it with your own eyes at that time? Yuan Tianren is indeed dead. I saw it with my own eyes. Just when everyone's hearts were in their throats and they thought that Han Wuji was going to testify against Qin Haodong, he smiled and said, but he died of a heart attack. It has nothing to do with Mr. Qin. After that, he looked at Chu Xianming sarcastically and thought to himself, I can't wait to curry favor with the Tang sect. How could I be as stupid as you? Then the other 5 old men also stood up to testify that Yuan Tianren had died of natural causes and had nothing to do with Qin Haodong. You are lying. You are covering up for Qin Haodong. Although Chu Xianming was scheming, he still misjudged the performance of the family masters of the 6 aristocratic families. He had thought that as long as he stood up, the 6 aristocratic families would definitely join him to overthrow Qin Haodong, but he had misjudged the situation. He did not know that after the incident with Yan Feifei last time, if they were not 100% confident, the 6 aristocratic families would definitely not have the courage to fight against Qin Haodong head-on. Chu Xianming suddenly had an idea. He turned to look at his father, Chu Shanhe, and shouted to Gao Feng, my father witnessed Qin Haodong kill Yuan Tianren with his own eyes. He told me the news. He can also stand up to testify. After he finished speaking, everyone's eyes were focused on Chu Shanhe. Chu Shanhe's face was livid. He wanted to strangle his disappointing son. Wasn't he trying to kill his father? Chapter 720. Because it was confirmed that Qin Haodong had killed someone, Chu Xianming did not use any connections. Gao Feng handled the case impartially. He looked at Chu Shanhe and said, Old Master Chu, is that so? Did you see Qin Haodong kill someone intentionally? No, I also saw Yuan Tianren die of a heart attack with my own eyes. It has nothing to do with Mr. Qin. Chu Shanhe gave a very positive answer and then said, Officer, my son is a little drunk. Don't listen to his nonsense. You better go back. Like the masters of the other 6 great families, he did not think that Chu Xianming could defeat Qin Haodong, so he would not stand up to testify. Gao Feng knew that this was the Chu family in the capital, so he did not dare to hold Chu Xianming responsible for making a false report. He turned around and said politely to him, Mr. Chu, it seems that this is a misunderstanding. If you don't have any evidence, I'll go back. Chu Xianming said anxiously, Officer Gao, you can't go. I'm telling the truth. Qin Haodong did kill Yuan Tianren, but these people are afraid of him, so no one dares to stand up to testify. Gao Feng glanced at Qin Haodong and then at the masters of the big families sitting next to him. It was not his first day as a policeman in the capital. Although he was not a martial artist, he knew that these old men were the masters of the big families in the capital. Even their director did not dare to offend them. How could they be threatened by this very ordinary young man? He did not smell any alcohol on Chu Xianming. If it were not for the power of the Chu family, he really wanted to catch this guy and take him back to have a blood test to see if he had taken drugs and why he was talking nonsense with his eyes wide open. Gao Feng said patiently, Mr. Chu, we the police need evidence to solve a case. Call me when you have concrete evidence. After that, he was about to leave. Chu Xianming grabbed his big arm, pointed to the 2 injured family members next to him and said, Officer Gao, even if this matter does not count, Qin Haodong has other cases. Just now he injured 2 of us. The 2 family members had just been sent flying by Qin Haodong and their faces were swollen. There were indeed bruises all over their bodies. Qin Haodong frowned. It seemed that Chu Xianming was determined to fight with him to the end, but he did not want to waste time like this. He said to Gao Feng, Officer, please go back. Even if I really kill someone, it's not your business. Gao Feng was speechless. Why did the people from this big family talk incoherently? It was okay for Chu Xianming to talk nonsense, but why did this young man not speak seriously? When he was about to say something, Qin Haodong said, suddenly, a certificate appeared in front of him. Gao Feng's heart skipped a beat when he saw the ID. As the deputy captain of the Imperial City's criminal police force, he was different from other police officers. He was very sensitive to such special IDs. He took the certificate from Qin Haodong, checked it carefully and gave it back with both hands. Then he saluted and said respectfully, Mr. Qin, I'm sorry to bother you. I'll go back now. After that, he waved to the policeman behind him. They left the banquet hall in a hurry and ignored Chu Xianming. The people present were confused. They didn't know what kind of idea was to make the police so respectful. Qin Haodong turned around and said to Chu Xianming with a sneer, What else do you want to say? I'm still waiting for you to teach me a lesson. Although they were far away and no one could see Qin Haodong's ID clearly, Chu Xianming was standing next to him and he could clearly see the words Xinyuan Pavilion on it. After a slight pause, he laughed again and said, Qin Haodong, don't think that I can't do anything to you just because you're a member of the Shenyuan Pavilion. Today I've prepared a few dishes for you. Since the first one doesn't work, look at the second one. Seeing that he was going on and offending Qin Haodong more and more, Chu Shanha said angrily, Second brother, what are you doing? Go back and put yourself in confinement. Don't make trouble anymore. Dad. Don't worry, I'll definitely bring Qin Haodong down today. Chu Xianming shouted like crazy, so what if he's a member of the Shenyuan Pavilion? Based on his age, he's at best a pawn. I've invited the leader of the Shenyuan Pavilion. Today, I must make him lose his reputation and die without a burial place. After he finished speaking, the masters of the 7 great families all changed their expressions. How could the major families living in the capital not know about the Shenyuan Pavilion? It was the supreme existence of the special department of Wuxia. There were many masters and it restricted all the martial artists in Wuxia. The leader of the Shenyuan Pavilion had a noble status and did not have much contact with the major families. How could it be possible that Chu Xianming said that he had invited the leader of the Shenyuan Pavilion? At this moment there was a disturbance at the door of the hall. Everyone turned their heads and saw a woman in white walking in. This person was dressed in a long white dress and had long hair. She carried a sword on her back and her face was as beautiful as a fairy's, but she was extremely dignified. The woman in white walked into the hall step by step. Soon, everyone was surprised to find that her feet were not on the ground, but walking in the air. All the men from the aristocratic families changed their expressions. This was a Saint Realm expert. When he saw the woman in white, Chu Xianming immediately ran up excitedly and said, Shenyuan Pavilion leader, you're finally here. I'll tell you that this guy named Qin Haodong is the one who colluded with the Devil Gate. Just a few days ago, at the engagement banquet of the Qi family, someone saw his woman, Nalan Wuxia, use the heavenly devil hand. This news is absolutely true. This time, ordinary people did not have much reaction, but the expressions of the masters of the 7 great families changed greatly. They all knew the woman in white in front of them. She was the leader of the Shenyuan Pavilion and also the sword master of the Zihang Sword House, Shenyuan Ligay. Previously, Yin Feifei could only be regarded as the top master among the 7 great families in the capital, but Shenyuan Ligay could be said to be the top master in the entire capital and even in Wuxia. They also knew that the Zihang Sword House and the Devil Gate had been mortal enemies for so many years. Chu Xuanming's move could be said to be extremely insidious. The aristocratic families of the Shenyuan Pavilion could be said to mind their own business. But if they vented their anger on the Tang sect because of the Devil Gate, even if the Tang sect also had a saint, Yin Feifei, they would not be able to escape the fate of destruction. Chu Shenyue also knew the existence of the Shenyuan Pavilion, but she did not know the relationship between Qin Haodong and the Shenyuan Pavilion. When she saw the leader of the Shenyuan Pavilion coming in person, she was shocked and worried for her son. Seeing everyone's shocked expressions, Chu Xianming felt proud. It seemed that he had really hit Qin Haodong's weakness this time. No matter how strong the Tang sect was, could it be stronger than the Shenyuan Pavilion? No matter how powerful Qin Haodong was, could he be more powerful than Shenyuan Ligay? Just when he was feeling proud, he saw Feng Wu and Hu Shaoxian step out from the women behind Qin Haodong. They came to Shenyuan Ligay and said respectfully, Greetings, Master. I'm Hu Shaoxian. Greetings, Pavilion Master. Everyone was stunned. No one had expected that there was a member of the Shenyuan Pavilion in the Tang sect and that Feng Wu was Shenyuan Ligay's direct disciple. Seeing this scene, people's hearts skipped a beat. If these 2 women pleaded for Qin Haodong, they might be able to escape this disaster. Chu Xianming was a little flustered. He hurriedly said, Pavilion Master Shenyuan, the Devil Gate is a great enemy of Wuxia. You must not let them go. Just when he was still talking, a scene that shocked everyone happened. Shenyuan Ligay stepped in front of Qin Haodong, bowed and said, Shenyuan Ligay of the Zihang Sword House greets Mr. Qin. In order to keep the secret of the Sacred Master, she did not call Qin Haodong the Sacred Master in public, but her respectful expression did not diminish at all. This time, everyone could not calm down. The masters of the 7 great families suddenly stood up as if their butts were on fire. They could not believe what was happening in front of them. My God, what did I see? The leader of the Shenyuan Pavilion is bowing to a young man. What the hell is going on? Bro, am I dreaming? Shenyuan Ligay is actually greeting a young man. What the hell is going on? Is this person fake? Is he a temporary actor hired by Qin Haodong? Bullsh *T, the temporary actor you found can have his feet off the ground. How can he pretend to be a saint? Besides, who dares to pretend to be the leader of the Shenyuan pavilion? Isn't that courting death? Qin Haodong still sat there with a calm expression. He waved his hand and said, "Please sit down, Pavilion Master Shenyuan." Shenyuan Ligay said respectfully, "With Mr. Qin here, how dare I sit down?" Seeing that Shenyuan Ligay was so respectful to Qin Haodong, the masters of the 7 great families were all shocked. Chu Shanha even felt like he had been F***ed. What was wrong with the world? What kind of person was this grandson of his? Could it be that he was an immortal? There was probably no other person in Wuxia who could make the leader of the Shenyuan pavilion so respectful. Qin Haodong then said to Shenyuan Ligay, "Pavilion Master Shenyuan, why are you here? What's the matter?" Shenyuan Ligay said, "Well, the Chu family reported that you were in touch with the Devil Gate. I think someone is going to make trouble for you, so I came here to have a look. Do you need me to help you solve it?" Plop. After Shenyuan Ligay finished speaking, Chu Shenming felt dizzy. His legs went limp and he fell to the ground with a plop. Originally his plan was extremely thorough. He used the Devil Gate as a clue to invite the leader of the Shenyuan pavilion. Then he could catch all the people of the Tang sect in one fell swoop. Not only Qin Haodong but also Nalan Wuxia and the others would not be able to escape death. But he had never expected that Shenyuan Ligay and Qin Haodong were on the same side, and she seemed to be a servant. The reason why she agreed to come here was that she wanted to teach him a lesson. Was there anything more tragic than this? Forget it, I'll solve it myself. Qin Haodong waved his hand and asked Shenyuan Ligay to stand aside. Then he said to Chu Xianming, "Mr. Chu, you used a series of tricks very well. One trick after another. Is there a second trick?" Seeing that Shenyuan Ligay immediately stood behind Qin Haodong respectfully, Chu Shanha sighed in his heart. His son, who thought he was smart, was completely finished. Moreover, he had also harmed the entire Chu family. He was afraid that after today, the Chu family would be removed from the capital. The masters of the other 6 great families sat next to him and secretly rejoiced. During this period of time, they had constantly improved their judgment of Qin Haodong's strength, but today it seemed that they had underestimated the young man in front of them. It seemed that from now on, the Tang sect would be the leader in the capital and other forces would not be able to shake it at all. Not to mention other things, the Shenyuan pavilion was definitely incomparable to others. After the shock, Chu Xianming got up from the ground and shouted with a fierce look, "Qin Haodong, don't think that you will win. Let me tell you." Qin Haodong sneered and said, "Are you going to tell me that the tea is poisoned and ask me to kneel down and beg for mercy?" Chu Xuanming's mouth, which had just been closed, suddenly opened again and he asked in horror, You already know?" Qin Haodong drank up the tea in front of him, then looked at him and said, "I have to say that you are very scheming, but there is a famous saying in Wuxia that if you know yourself and your enemy, you will always win. I also have a nickname, Medical Sage. Your poison is not even enough to fill the gaps between my teeth." Chapter 721. Hearing that there was poison in the tea, there was a commotion among the people around, especially the masters of the other 6 families. Their faces immediately darkened. They did not know if there was also poison in their tea. "Don't be nervous, everyone. He doesn't have the guts to poison everyone." Qin Haodong picked up his teacup and twisted it hard with both hands. The base of the delicate porcelain teacup was twisted off. He raised the base in his hand and said, "This cup is called the Immortal Cup, which is specially used to poison people. There are a few small holes where the base is connected to the top, but they are all smeared with special wax oil, so the naked eye can't see them at all. When poisoning, you only need to put the poison in the base and then give it to the person. At the beginning, because the poison did not overflow, the other party would not be able to find it no matter how vigilant they were. But as time went by, the other party's vigilance gradually decreased. At this time, the wax oil melted in the heat and the poison continued to overflow, turning the tea in the cup into a cup of deadly poisonous tea. So don't worry, this poison is only in my cup. You're all safe." Everyone was stunned. There was actually such a poisonous artifact. The intention was really ingenious. Some people picked up the teacups in their hands and tried, but no matter how hard they tried, they could not turn the base off. After confirming that they were not poisoned, these people were relieved. In fact, they were completely worried. If they were poisoned, their bodies would have reacted long ago. After all, they did not have Qin Haodong's physique that was immune to all poisons. On the other side, Chu Shanha had completely sunk to the bottom and there was no longer any joy on his face. If the previous contradiction could be resolved, now he was completely standing on the opposite side of the Tang sect. From another perspective, if someone poisoned him, he would never forgive the culprit. He didn't expect that his birthday banquet would be ruined by this stupid mother and son. After Qin Haodong introduced the immortal cup, he said to Chu Xianming, "What do you think? Mr. Chu, am I right?" Seeing that Qin Haodong was not poisoned, Chu Xuanming's last trump card had been used. He was no longer as calm as before and his face was pale. "Haodong, I was wrong. I was really wrong this time. For the sake of my status as your uncle, please forgive me this time." Chu Xianming no longer cared about his identity and face. He knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Qin Haodong to beg for mercy. Then he begged Chu Xianyue next to him, "Little sister, please say something for me. I'm your brother." Chu Xianyue directly turned her face to the side. At this time her expression was also very ugly. If it was other things she could help to say a few good words, but poisoning her own son was simply unforgivable. Seeing that his sister ignored him, he turned around and begged Qin Haodong. Of course, Qin Haodong would not be fooled by his pity. This kind of person was a poisonous snake. If you let him go today, he would bite you tomorrow. "Tell me, what poison did you give me? What's the purpose?" As he spoke, he immediately used the soul-devouring technique. This poison is called Thousand Opportunity Poison. After it enters the human body, it will change its location every 2 hours. There is no antidote at all. If you can't get the antidote within 24 hours, all the places that the Thousand Opportunity Poison has passed through will start to fester, and eventually, you will die slowly due to your body rotting. Too vicious. There's actually such a vicious poison. How can the poison be detoxified if it changes its location every 2 hours? He poisoned his own nephew. Is he still a human? It's really hateful. Under the control of the soul-devouring technique, Chu Xianming did not care about the condemnation of others at all. He continued, "Even if I get the antidote, I can't fundamentally cure the Thousand Opportunity Poison. It can only temporarily relieve the poison's effect." Hearing this, the crowd who had just quieted down became excited again. If he could control Qin Haodong with the Thousand Opportunity Poison, it would be equivalent to controlling the entire Tang sect. Now the Tang sect dominated the entire capital. Controlling the Tang sect was equivalent to dominating the capital. It could be seen how ambitious Chu Xianming was. At the same time, everyone also understood why Chu Xianming took the risk. It turned out that he had a big plan. Qin Haodong asked again, "Since you found such a rare poison, why did you still use those despicable means to deal with me?" Chu Xianming was like a good child and answered every question. "I know that you are very difficult to deal with, so I can't walk on one leg. So I thought of many ways to distract you and let the Thousand Opportunity Poison take effect." At this time, the masters of the 7 great families realized that Chu Xianming was not stupid, but too shrewd. At the same time, a deep fear of Qin Haodong arose in their hearts. Even such a vicious plan could not do anything to him. It could be seen how difficult it was to deal with this person. Qin Haodong continued to ask, "Ordinary people can't make this Thousand Opportunity Poison at all. Where did you get it?" Chu Xianming said, "My son Chu Mingtsong bought it from a woman named Chen Meihui. That woman is still hiding in his room." Chu Mingtsong had been hiding behind the crowd. He had thought that his father would not throw him out. He had never expected that Qin Haodong would have such a magical skill as the soul-devouring technique. Now when he heard that his father had also recognized him, he turned around and was about to run away. However, he was kicked down by Chu Mingli, who was standing next to him. Then he lifted his collar and threw him in front of Qin Haodong. Now Chu Mingli regarded his cousin as a god, but he dared to poison his own god. Even his own cousin could not do it. Qin Haodong waved his hand and Ma Wenjue and Zhang Tiniu immediately rushed to the residential area of the Chu family's manor with their men. He turned around to look at Chu Mingtsong and asked, "How did you know Chen Meihui and how did you cooperate with her?" "After being taught a lesson by you at the airport that day, I felt very aggrieved, so I went to the bar to drink. I met Chen Meihui there. I saw that she was beautiful, so I wanted to get a room with her to vent my anger. I didn't expect that she would take the initiative to tell me that she had a blood feud with you and wanted to deal with you with me. I immediately agreed. After that, she gave me this fairy cup and Thousand Opportunity Poison and taught me how to use it. In order to avoid my suspicion, she returned to the Chu family's villa with me at night and did not leave. She waited for my news there." Chen Meihui had a blood feud with me? Qin Haodong searched his mind from beginning to end, but he could not remember when he had met such a person. At this moment, Zhang Tiniu walked into the hall with a beautiful woman. The moment he saw the woman, Qin Haodong immediately understood that she was not Chen Meihui, but Chiba Mieko from Neon. A few months ago, Chiba Mieko had attacked him at the exchange meeting between Wuxia and Neon. He did not kill her but only destroyed her cultivation. He did not expect that this woman would be so vindictive. After such a long time she still came to Wuxia to attack him. After arriving at the hall, Chiba Mieko looked calm and did not show much fear. She glanced at Chu Xinming and Chu Mingtsong with disdain and said, "You two are really useless. I'm so disappointed in you." Then she looked at Qin Haodong and said, "You damn Wuxia man, how dare you destroy my years of hard work. During this period of time, I have been studying poison and concocting the 1,000 opportunity poison that has no antidote at all. I thought that I would definitely kill you this time, but I didn't expect that these two stupid guys were so useless that they were discovered by you." Qin Haodong looked at Chiba Mieko coldly and said with a murderous look, "I've already let you go last time, but you still came here to poison me. Do you think that I don't dare to kill you?" Chiba Mieko smiled proudly and said, "You're right. You really don't dare to kill me because my grandfather is Kyo Chiba, the sage of Neon. My grandfather didn't agree with me to practice martial arts, so it's okay for you to destroy my cultivation. But if you dare to kill me, my grandfather will definitely kill you and all your relatives." Hearing that this Neon woman turned out to be Kyo Chiba's granddaughter, many of the martial artists present were moved. Kyo Chiba had dominated Neon for many years and was known as the #1 martial artist in Neon. Although Kyo Chiba had not fought for many years, he was recognized as a saint-level master. Although the Tang sect now dominated the capital, Kyo Chiba was definitely not someone to be trifled with. No one knew how the young man in front of them would deal with this Neon woman. Everyone's eyes were focused on him. Qin Haodong sneered and said, "Kyo Chiba? Do you think that an old man from Neon can scare us Wuxia people?" A sneer appeared at the corner of Chiba Mieko's mouth. "Am I scaring you? Do you know why I didn't leave but waited to be caught by you and the Chu family? Because this is also one of my plans. If the 1,000 opportunity poison doesn't kill you, you can catch me. It's best if you can kill me and then let my grandfather avenge me. Then you will definitely die. This Neon woman is really abnormal. She can even come up with such a method for revenge. I think this woman is bluffing. She doesn't want to die at all. I don't know if Qin Haodong dares to kill this woman. Her grandfather is the sage of Neon." While many people were discussing, Chiba Mieko raised her chin and said provocatively, "What do you think? Do you dare to kill me?" "As you wish." After that, Qin Haodong flicked his finger and a wind shot out, piercing into Chiba Mieko's left chest. Chiba Mieko had no cultivation at all, so her heart meridians were immediately broken. Her eyes widened and were full of unwillingness. Obviously, she did not want to die and did not believe that Qin Haodong would really dare to kill her. But everything had become a reality. A few seconds later, her body fell to the ground with a plop and she was no longer breathing. Seeing that Qin Haodong even dared to kill the granddaughter of the Sage of Sword, Chu Xinming and Chu Mingtsong were scared out of their wits. They quickly knelt on the ground and begged bitterly, "Don't kill me. Please don't kill me. We are blood relatives. Haodong, I'm your uncle. I can give you all my property over the years, but please don't kill me." Qin Haodong looked at the two people in front of him coldly and said in a cold voice, "As Wuxia people, when you colluded with the Neon people to poison me, did you ever think that we are blood relatives? When you schemed against me one after another, didn't you think about the consequences of failure?" At this time, everyone present could feel the murderous intent emanating from him and realized that the two people seemed to be in danger. However, because of Qin Haodong's majesty, no one dared to stand up and speak. Chu Shanhe stood next to him. He saw that his son and grandson's lives were hanging by a thread, but he had no ability to stop them. He turned his head to look at Chu Xianyue, hoping that his daughter could come forward to stop them. However, Chu Xianyue did not even look at him. She had no intention of coming forward. Although Jin Xiuying's acupoints were sealed, she could see all this clearly. Her expression constantly changed. Obviously, she was anxious for her favorite son and grandson, but now she couldn't say a word, and her body couldn't move at all. Chapter 722. Faced with this question, Chu Xianming and his son were speechless. They had been thinking about how much benefits they would get after they succeeded. They had never considered the consequences of failure. Qin Haodong said coldly, "There is no need for people like you to live in this world. But for the sake of the Chu family, I'll leave your bodies intact." Seeing that Qin Haodong wanted to kill them, Chu Xianming and his son knew that they could not do anything. They jumped up from the ground and were about to escape. But as soon as they took 2 steps, 2 gusts of wind shot into their backs. Plop! Plop! Chu Xianming and Chu Mingcong fell beside Chiba Mieko's body and they were no longer breathing. Seeing that the two core disciples of the Chu family had been killed, everyone else was shocked. But under such circumstances, no one dared to make a sound. The huge living room was so quiet that one could hear their breathing. Everyone knew that this matter was not over yet. They were afraid that the Chu family would not be able to escape this time. Sure enough, Qin Haodong slowly came to his senses and said to Chu Shanhe, who was standing next to him, "My mother and I came back to celebrate your birthday, but look at what the Chu family has done. They have deliberately planned to deal with us. As the family master, you can't be absolved of the blame." Chu Shanhe had no time to care about the pain of losing his son. He quickly said, "My unfilial son did all this behind my back. I didn't know anything about it." "Of course I know. If you were involved, you wouldn't have the chance to stand and talk to me now." Qin Haodong stood up and exuded a powerful aura, suppressing everyone present. He said lightly, "Originally, I could have wiped you out from the capital because of what the Chu family has done to me. But for the sake of my mother, I'll give you a chance. Abdicate and give the position of the family master to my uncle. Then leave the capital. I can let the Chu family go this time." Feeling his powerful aura, all the members of the Chu family were silent. When they heard that Qin Haodong only wanted Chu Shanhe to abdicate, they immediately breathed a sigh of relief. Compared with the destruction of the Chu family, this was the best choice. As for the family heads of the other 6 great families, although they looked calm on the surface, their hearts were in turmoil. No one had ever been able to cripple the family head of a great family except for Qin Haodong. Although he knew that this was the lightest punishment, Chu Shanhe still said unwillingly, "Haodong, sooner or later the position of master will be passed to Xuanli, but now he is still young. If I step down from my position as the patriarch, I'm afraid he won't be able to convince the masses. How about this? After a few years I will step down from the position of the family master and pass it to Chu Xuanli." Qin Haodong turned to the Chu family and asked, "Are you convinced that my uncle will be the master of the Chu family?" His voice was not loud, but it was filled with endless majesty. "I support Chu Xuanli to be the master of the Chu family." The first to stand up and speak was the first elder, Chu Shanchuan. Then second elder Chu Shanhai also shouted, "I also support Chu Xuanli to be the master of the Chu family." These two were the most prestigious elders in the Chu family. After they spoke, the rest of the Chu family echoed, "We support Chu Xuanli to be the master of the Chu family." "I have no objection. Chu Xuanli is the most suitable person to be the master." These people had already seen clearly that the vicious old woman, Jin Xiaoying, had completely offended Chu Xianyue and her son. In addition, what Chu Xianming had just done. If Chu Xuanli was not the master of the Chu family, they were afraid that the Chu family would really be finished. Moreover, they also knew that Chu Xuanli was the closest to Qin Haodong. Among the people in the Chu family, only he could be recognized by Qin Haodong. Once Chu Xuanli became the master, the Chu family would definitely get the full support of the Tang sect. It would be difficult for them not to be strong in the future. If the Chu family was strong, their interests would naturally be guaranteed. The children of these big families had always developed a way of doing things that put interests first. As long as they could guarantee their own interests, it did not matter who was the master of the family. Moreover, Chu Xuanli was already a level 9 supreme power master. If he was the master of the Chu family, he could immediately strengthen the strength of the Chu family and no one could find a reason to object. Therefore, under Qin Haodong's interrogation, 100% of the Chu family present stood up to support Chu Xuanli as the master of the family. It could be said that it was what everyone expected. Looking at these people in front of him, Chu Shanhe's face was gloomy. He knew that his position as the master of the family had indeed come to an end. He could only say helplessly, "Well, from today on I, Chu Shanhe, will step down from the position of the family master and leave the capital in a few days." At this moment, his heart was full of regret. If he had regarded Qin Haodong as his own grandson from the beginning, if he could move Chu Xianyue with family affection this time, perhaps the current situation would not be the case. But there was no medicine for regret in the world. He could only think about it in his heart. Chu Xuanli had not recovered from the shock. Recently, things had changed too fast. Not only had he jumped from an ordinary level 6 Supreme Power Master to a level 9 Supreme Power Master, but now he had also become the master of the Chu family. This made him a little unable to accept it for a while. The matter of the Chu family had been completely resolved. Qin Haodong did not want to stay here anymore. He left the Chu family with a group of people and returned to the Tang sect. After seeing them leave, Chu Shanhe sighed and walked to Jin Xiaoying. He raised his hand and unsealed her acupoints. Son. Grandson. As soon as she regained her freedom of movement, Jin Xiuying immediately stumbled to the bodies of Chu Xianming and Chu Mingcong. She hugged them and burst into tears. After a while, she raised her head again, stared at Chu Shanhe with bloodshot eyes and scolded, "Are you still a man? How could you watch that little bastard kill your son and grandson?" Chu Shanhe was holding back his anger and had nowhere to vent it. How could he tolerate Jin Xiuying's temper? He immediately shouted angrily, "Enough! If it weren't for you, the Chu family wouldn't have become like this." Jin Xiuying was stunned at first, and then she shouted crazily again, "I don't care. I only know that little bastard killed my son and grandson. I want him to pay with his life. I want to call the police. I want him to die." As soon as she took out her mobile phone, it was smashed by Chu Shanhe. "Have you had enough? These two little bastards communicated with the Neon people and wanted to poison the members of the Shenyuan Pavilion. What's the use of calling the police? Do you want to anger Qin Haodong again?" Jin Xiuying cried, "Do you mean that my son and grandson died in vain? So what if they didn't die in vain? Do you want the whole Chu family to be buried with them?" The one who spoke was the first elder, Chu Shanchuan. He said with a gloomy face, "If it weren't for you bitch who valued boys more than girls and doted on Chu Shenming, how could he have caused such a big trouble? If you could treat your own daughter better, how could our Chu family be so passive? In the end you are the culprit." What else did Jin Xiuying want to say? But when she opened her mouth, she suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground on her back. Chu Xuanli rushed over to help her up, only to find that the old lady was no longer breathing. This vicious old woman, who had been domineering all her life, finally died of anger. It could be said that she had brought it upon herself. Looking at the four bodies on the ground, Chu Shanhe sighed and said to Chu Xuanli, "No matter what, death is the most important thing. After all, they are members of our Chu family. Bury them." Chu Xuanli nodded and asked a few family members to carry the four bodies away. Then he began to prepare for the funeral. Qin Haodong returned to the Tang sect and brought Shenyuan Ligay to the reception room. "Sacred Master, is the Qinji poison in your body okay?" At this moment there was no one around, so Shenyuan Ligay immediately called him respectfully. "I'm fine. This poison is nothing to me." Qin Haodong waved his hand and said to her, "You came to me this time not only because of Chu Xianming, right?" Shenyuan Ligay said with a happy face, "Of course not. I'm here to tell you the good news. Since using your pills, the overall cultivation of our Zihang Sword House has improved rapidly. I have advanced from the early stage of the Saint Realm to the middle stage of the Saint Realm. In addition, 6 ninth-level Supreme Power Masters have broken through to the Saint Realm, and 10 other disciples have also broken through to the 9th level of the Supreme Power Realm. It can be said that the strength of the Zihang Sword House is unprecedentedly powerful. Even if the Devil Gate goes back on its word, we can still destroy them easily." The more she spoke, the more excited she became. Since she found the Sacred Master, the Zihang Sword House was no longer the same as before. The number of masters had increased several times that of the Devil Gate. It could be said that there were many masters and their strength was unprecedented. Hearing this news, Qin Haodong nodded with satisfaction. These pills made of 5,000-year-old medicinal materials were indeed powerful. The stronger the Zihang Sword House was, the more confident they would be in fighting against the alien demons in the future. He said, "Now we don't know how powerful the alien demons are, but since they were able to fight against Emperor Huang Shenyuan and Qiyu, they must not be weak. We have to hurry up and improve. Wait here for a while. I'll refine some more pills for you to take away." After that, he left Shenyuan Ligay there and took the little fellow into the alchemy room. Now Tang Tang's phoenix flame had been greatly improved and was close to the Samadhi true fire. Her cultivation had also been improved to the early stage of the Yuaning realm. With the 2 superimposed, refining pills was several times faster than before, and the quality was also constantly improving. Near dusk, Qin Haodong and the little fellow walked out of the alchemy room. His storage ring was already filled with all kinds of pills. Shenyuan Ligay took the pills, thanked Qin Haodong quietly and left the Tang sect. Qin Haodong called Ma Wenjue and gave him the newly refined pills. He asked him to distribute them to the people of the Tang sect. Now that the major forces in the capital had been calmed down, what they needed to do was to quietly improve their strength and wait for the alien demons to give them a fatal blow. After seeing Shenyuan Ligay off and having dinner, Qin Haodong took Zhao Qingwu into the Tang sect. That night, Han Jiu and Zhao Qingwu also became 9th-level Supreme Power Masters. However, they and Wei Yanran were just ordinary people before and did not know much about martial arts. It would take some time for them to improve their strength. After their cultivation was completely stabilized, they would go back to take over the position of the family master and completely take control of their families. With the current deterrent power of the Tang sect, he believed that the other great families would not dare to stand up against it. The next morning, Qin Haodong had just had breakfast when his cell phone suddenly rang. He picked it up and took a look. It was a call from Hua Mingrui. After pressing the answer button, he heard the other side saying anxiously, "Haodong, where are you now?" Hua Mingrui was a quiet person and her words and deeds were extremely elegant. Something big must have happened to make her so anxious. Qin Haodong asked, "I'm at home. What's the matter?" "Then can you come to my tea house for a while? I have something important to talk to you about." "Okay, wait for me for a while. I'll be there now." Now that the two of them were friends, Qin Haodong naturally could not refuse. He hung up the phone, said goodbye to his family and drove to Hua Mingrui's Jingdong tea house. After entering the door, he saw that Hua Mingrui was not reading books and drinking tea as usual. Instead, she was sitting there with a sad face. He asked, "What's wrong? Is something wrong?" Chapter 723. Seeing Qin Haodong enter the door, Hua Mingrui quickly stood up and said anxiously, "My uncle just called and said that my grandfather is critically ill. I want you to see him." "I thought it was something serious. It's normal to see a doctor. As long as your grandfather is still alive, I can save him." Qin Haodong was full of confidence in curing diseases. Hua Mingrui still said with a sad face, "But it's not as simple as you think." Qin Haodong said in surprise, "Isn't it just a treatment? What's so complicated about it?" Hua Mingrui sighed and said, "Grandpa has been ill for several months. After the exchange meeting between Huaxia and Neon, I returned to the capital because of this. At that time, I wanted you to come and take a look at my grandfather, but my uncle didn't agree. He was very resistant to traditional Chinese medicine and even said that he hated it. Even if I invited you, I'm afraid that he wouldn't allow you to treat my grandfather." "How could this be? Does he want to see your grandfather die with his own eyes?" "No, my uncle is also very filial. In recent years he has invited famous doctors all over the world to treat Grandpa's illness, but they are all Western doctors." Hua Mingrui asked Qin Haodong to sit down and then said, "There is a reason why he hates traditional Chinese medicine. When he was young he had a high fever, but he was misdiagnosed by traditional Chinese medicine and almost lost his life. From then on, he no longer trusted traditional Chinese medicine and even hated it. Both he and his family refused to see traditional Chinese medicine when they were sick." Qin Haodong said, "In fact, what he should hate is not traditional Chinese medicine but that quack. There is nothing wrong with traditional Chinese medicine, but the quack's medical skills are the problem. Quacks are not only common in traditional Chinese medicine, but also in Western medicine. In terms of the number of medical accidents, Western medicine is far more than traditional Chinese medicine. We can't deny traditional Chinese medicine because of this." "You're right. That's true, but my uncle has been traumatized since he was a child. I tried to persuade him several times but he couldn't change it." Qin Haodong said, "Then I can't help you. Your grandfather is critically ill now. If his family doesn't agree, I can't cure him." Hua Mingrui said, "Grandpa loves me very much. Now Western medicine has no good way to cure his illness. I can't just watch him die, so I want you to come with me to see if you can cure his illness." Qin Haodong said, "You can go to see a doctor, but if you don't solve your uncle's problem, I'm afraid it will be very difficult. I've already thought of a way. You pretend to be my boyfriend and go to visit my grandfather with me. My uncle won't suspect anything. At that time you can take a look at my grandfather's condition. If you can't cure him, forget it. If you can, I'll think of another way." When Hua Mingrui said this, her white and tender cheeks flushed. She had never had a boyfriend in her life, and it was the first time she had asked someone to pretend to be her boyfriend. The most important thing was that she had an endless good impression of Qin Haodong from the bottom of her heart. Thinking of having this handsome man as her boyfriend, her heart kept pounding. Qin Haodong said, "That's fine. Let's go and have a look." Seeing that he agreed, Hua Mingrui was overjoyed. "Haodong, thank you. Don't mention it. It's not a big deal at all." Qin Haodong asked Hua Mingrui to get in his car and then drove forward according to her instructions. Along the way, Hua Mingrui began to introduce her grandfather's situation. It turned out that her grandfather's name was Mu Baisin, who had once followed Taizu to conquer the world. He was one of the few old generals left today and had a very high status in Huaxia. Among his uncles, some were in politics and some were in the army, and they all held important positions. Only her youngest uncle, Mu Haiqing, was in business and had a large business. The Jubao auction house was one of his subordinate businesses. Qin Haodong nodded secretly. No wonder he could open such a large auction house in a place like the capital. It turned out that he had such a deep official background. While they were talking, they had already driven to a nursing home on the outskirts of the capital. The scenery here was beautiful and the air was fresh. It was indeed a good place for recuperation. This nursing home belonged to the military. From the entrance, there was a guard every 3 steps and a sentry every 5 steps. The security was extremely tight. Hua Mingrui showed her pass and then led Qin Haodong into the nursing home. After entering the door, it was still heavily guarded. All kinds of guards in military uniforms and plain clothes were shuttling around. Once they found anything unusual, they would immediately give a thunderous blow. Mu Bison's rank was very high. He did not live with other nursing staff. Instead, he enjoyed a small courtyard alone. The guard at the door knew Hua Mingrui. When he saw her coming, he did not say much and directly let the two of them in. Perhaps in order to make it more realistic, Hua Mingrui took Qin Haodong's arm and pressed her towering chest tightly against his arm. They walked into the ward and saw a thin old man lying on the bed. There were all kinds of tubes in his body and he was breathing oxygen through his nostrils. At this time he was in a coma. At the head of the bed, a middle-aged man in his 40s was standing there. He had a faint aura of a superior, but at this time his face was sad. It was obvious that he was worried about the old man's illness. He was Hua Mingrui's uncle, Mu Haiqing, the head of the Mu's group in the capital. He had hundreds of billions of assets in his hands. Next to him stood a young doctor in his 30s. He was wearing a white coat and his hair was meticulously combed. There was a faint arrogant look on his face. He was talking to Mu Haiqing. After seeing Hua Mingrui and Qin Haodong enter the door, the young doctor immediately stopped talking. Mu Haiqing also turned around and saw Hua Mingrui. He said, "Mingrui, you're here." Then he saw Qin Haodong next to her and asked in surprise, "Mingrui, who is this young man?" Hua Mingrui said shyly, "Uncle, this is my boyfriend Qin Haodong." Hearing this, Mu Haiqing was slightly stunned. His niece had been arrogant since she was a child. She had never talked to any man. He did not expect that she would bring her boyfriend here today. The young doctor next to him changed his expression greatly. He was Li Shuai, a cardiopulmonary expert in this sanatorium. He was a famous doctor who had returned from abroad. Since he saw Hua Mingrui in the ward a month ago, Li Shuai had been shocked and immediately began to pursue her crazily. However, Hua Mingrui rejected him all the time, no matter whether he sent her flowers, invited her to dinner or watched a movie. Even so, he did not give up. He felt that as long as he persisted, he would be able to win Hua Mingrui's heart sooner or later. But today she came directly with her boyfriend, which made him feel as if a basin of cold water had been poured over his head. Hearing that it was his niece's boyfriend, Mu Haiqing's attitude immediately became much better. He warmly invited him to sit on the sofa next to him. This was a high-end ward. Not only was it decorated very luxuriously, but it was also equipped with sofas, televisions and other equipment. Not bad, young man. He's very handsome. Mu Haiqing was very satisfied with Qin Haodong's appearance. He looked very compatible with his niece. Then he asked other parents, "Little Qin, what do you do?" Well, Hua Mingrui had told him before that he must not say that he was a doctor. After hesitating for a moment, he said, "I'm a security guard." In fact, this was not wrong. He was indeed a member of the Daddy Security Company. Security guard? Hearing this answer, Mu Haiqing was stunned. He knew Hua Mingrui's pride very well. How could she have a security guard as her boyfriend? Li Shuai, who was next to him, suddenly looked much more relaxed. Although this guy looked very handsome, he was just a security guard. How could he compare with a top student who graduated from a famous medical university in M country? Hua Mingrui, who was next to him, was afraid that she would reveal something if she said too much. She hurriedly said, "Uncle Haodong and I are here to visit grandfather." At the mention of his father, Mu Haiqing's expression, which had just relaxed a little, immediately became serious again. "Your grandfather's condition is very bad now. According to Dr. Li's speculation, he can hold on for 3 days at most." Hearing that his specialty was mentioned, Li Shuai would not let go of the opportunity to show off. He hurriedly stepped forward and said, "That's the current situation, but I've already asked my teacher to go to Wuxia from the World Medical Association. He is an expert in cardiology. I believe that he can definitely cure Mr. Mu's disease." and I've already reported Mr. Mu's condition to the hospital. The director said that he had already reported it to Minister Xiao Weiman of the Ministry of Health. Minister Xiao attaches great importance to it. He has already summoned the cardiology experts in the capital. As soon as my teacher arrives, he will immediately carry out an expert consultation with a combination of Chinese and Western medicine. We will definitely find a way to cure Mr. Mu. This guy's saliva was flying everywhere, and he was trying his best to show his role in this consultation. But Hua Mingrui did not care about this at all. What she cared about was whether Qin Haodong could cure her grandfather. "Uncle, I'll go and see grandfather." Hua Mingrui did not even look at Li Shuai. She took Qin Haodong and walked to the bed together. Since they had left, there was no need for Li Shuai to continue talking. He could only stop talking awkwardly. Hua Mingrui came to Mu Baison's bed and tentatively looked at the old man. Then she picked up the basin next to her, poured some warm water and gently wiped the old man's cheeks. Qin Haodong stood next to her. With his medical skills, although he did not feel the pulse, he could clearly see the old man's condition. Seeing that Mu Haiqing did not pay attention to them, Hua Mingrui secretly said in Qin Haodong's ear, "How is it? Is there any hope for my grandfather?" Qin Haodong said, "The source of your grandfather's disease is in the lungs. He should have been injured in the early years. Although he has been treated, the root of the disease has not been completely removed. Later he caught a cold which caused his condition to become worse and worse. Now, not only the veins of the lungs are thicker, but there is also fluid accumulation. This is not the most serious problem. The cause of your grandfather's coma is pulmonary fibrosis, which is also the most troublesome thing in the treatment." Hua Mingrui had heard doctors discuss her grandfather's condition many times. What Qin Haodong said just now was no different from the results measured by those sophisticated instruments. She asked with a face full of hope, "Can you cure this disease?" Qin Haodong said confidently, "Although it's a little troublesome, it's not too difficult. If you let me treat it, your grandfather can wake up and get out of bed in one session, and he can be completely cured in 3 sessions. "Really? That's great." Hua Mingrui was overjoyed. For a long time, the news she had heard was how serious her grandfather's condition was and how difficult it was to treat him. In the end he could not be cured. Now that she heard the good news from Qin Haodong and they were very close, she couldn't help but kiss Qin Haodong's cheek in excitement. Although Li Shuai had been talking to Mu Haiqing, his attention was always on Hua Mingrui. When he saw that Hua Mingrui had secretly kissed Qin Haodong, his face suddenly became extremely ugly. Hua Mingrui was also very embarrassed for her impulse just now. Her white and tender cheeks were so red that it seemed that blood was about to drip down. In order to avoid embarrassment, she quickly changed the topic and said, "I'll go to persuade my uncle now and ask him to allow you to treat my grandfather." Chapter 724. When Qin Haodong was about to speak, there was the sound of messy footsteps at the door. Then a dozen people came in, led by a middle-aged man in a jacket. He was about 50 years old and looked a little thin, but he was full of energy. He was Xiao Weiman, the first deputy minister of the Ministry of Health of Wuxia. Next to him was a white man with blonde hair and blue eyes. This man was dressed in a suit and was meticulously dressed. As he walked, he talked to Xiao Weiman in fluent Chinese. This man was Qin Haodong's nominal disciple, James, a cardiopulmonary expert of the World Medical Association. This guy had been practicing Chinese hard and now he spoke much more fluently than before. If he closed his eyes, he wouldn't be able to tell that he was a foreigner speaking Wuxia. Behind them were more than a dozen doctors in white coats. They were all the top cardiopulmonary experts of the major hospitals in the capital. After seeing these people, Mu Haiqing and Li Shuai hurriedly greeted them and took them into the ward. Seeing these people, both of them realized that this was not a good opportunity to persuade Mu Haiqing to accept the treatment of traditional Chinese medicine. They silently retreated to a corner of the ward, wanting to see if these experts had any good ideas. James was surrounded by these people and he didn't see Qin Haodong next to him. When Li Shuai saw James, he immediately ran up and said, "Teacher, you're here." When he was studying in M country, he did study with James for a period of time. He was one of his many students. However, James's attitude towards him was relatively cold. He just nodded slightly and didn't say much. It seemed that he was more like an expert invited by the Ministry of Health and had nothing to do with him. After a simple greeting, Xiao Weiman took James to see Old Master Mu's situation and then said to Li Shuai, "Introduce Old Master Mu's situation to these experts." Li Shuai was obviously very excited to make an introduction in front of so many experts. He wanted to find Hua Mingrui and show off his elegance, but he didn't find her after a few glances. Of course at this time he didn't allow too much time to waste. He immediately cleared his throat and began to talk. Old Master Mu's main disease is in the lungs. Because he was injured when he was young, he didn't get a thorough treatment in the later stage, and his condition was aggravated by a cold. Now both lungs have thickened, the left costal diaphragm has become blunt, the left pleura has thickened and adhered, accompanied by fluid accumulation. The left upper lung has old pulmonary tuberculosis, and its activity is limited. The lung lobes are showing signs of atrophy, and the pulmonary fibrosis has intensified. James and the other experts were quite relaxed at first, but as they listened to Li Shuai's introduction, their expressions became more and more serious. When they heard that the lung lobes had atrophied and the pulmonary fibrosis had intensified, all of them frowned. After listening to Li Shuai's introduction, James checked the examination materials in detail. Finally he put them down with a gloomy face. He raised his head and said to Xiao Weiman, "Minister Xiao, I'm sorry. The patient's condition has deteriorated to a certain extent. There's nothing I can do." After he finished speaking, the other experts also nodded one after another. Although they were all well-known experts, not all diseases could be cured. They were helpless when it came to old Master Mu's illness. Xiao Weiman had spent a lot of effort to invite James. Originally he had great hopes for him. Now that James said that there was nothing he could do about old Master Mu's illness, he immediately said anxiously, "Mr. James, you are an expert in cardiopulmonary medicine. Old Master Mu is a hero of our country. You must think of a way." James spread out his hands helplessly and said, "Minister Xiao, I'm really sorry. Everyone is equal in the face of illness. This kind of lung disease is really too serious. There's nothing I can do." He spoke in Wuxia language so Mu Haiqing could hear him clearly. When he heard that there was no hope for his father, he said anxiously, "Dr. James, please think about it again. Is there any other way? As long as my father's life can be saved, we can do anything." James originally wanted to refuse, but he hesitated for a moment and said, "In fact, there is still a way. If you can find my teacher with his magical medical skills, he may be able to save old Master Mu from the hands of death." In order to perform positively in front of the Mu family and win Hua Mingrue's favor, Li Shuai said first, "Teacher, tell me where is the Grandmaster? I can invite him." "I'm here." Seeing that these experts couldn't do anything, and the old man's condition was urgent and couldn't be delayed any longer, Qin Haodong no longer hid and directly stood out from the side. After he finished speaking, the people in the room immediately looked in the direction of the voice and saw Qin Haodong and Hua Mingrue in the corner. Mu Haiqing frowned. At this moment he was in an extremely bad mood. He did not expect that the man his niece found was so unreliable that he dared to joke at this time. Before he could speak, Li Shuai had already rushed over. He pointed at Qin Haodong's nose and shouted, "Boy, how dare you take advantage of me?" Qin Haodong said with a smile, "I didn't take advantage of you. He is indeed your grandmaster." "Boy, are you looking for a beating?" In front of so many experts, especially when Hua Mingrue was watching, he was continuously teased by Qin Haodong. Li Shuai was completely angry. He waved his fist and was about to rush over. At this moment, a big hand reached out and grabbed his wrist. "That's right, this is your grandmaster." After James stopped Li Shuai, he strode to Qin Haodong, bowed deeply and said respectfully, "Hello, teacher. Why are you here?" "Teacher? You, old man?" If James was not a well-known cardiopulmonary expert of the World Medical Association, others would have laughed out loud. This young man was only about 20 years old, but James, who was in his 40s, was so respectful. What was going on? Xiao Weiman and Mu Haiqing stood next to them and were also confused. They did not know what was going on. Li Shuai stood next to them and he was even more confused. He did not understand what was going on. When he came to his senses, he said to James, "Teacher, did you make a mistake? This guy is not a doctor at all. He is just a security guard." James straightened up and said to him in an extremely stern tone, "What nonsense are you talking about? Although my teacher has a security company, he is the famous medical sage in Jiangnan and the most outstanding doctor. I tell you, you must apologize to the Grandmaster, or don't call yourself my student in the future." Li Shuai suddenly felt that he was more wrong than Do Yi, and more bitter than eating Chinese gold thread. He said he was the security guard, but why did he blame him? He was his rival in love. Why did he become the Grandmaster? Qin Haodong did not speak. He looked at Li Shuai with great interest, wondering what his grandson would choose. If Li Shuai chose to bow to him, he would give up his dignity. If he refused James, he would give up his interests. After all, James was a core member of the World Medical Association and an expert in cardiopulmonary medicine. Having such a teacher would bring him great honor and benefits in the medical industry. Li Shuai hesitated for a long time and finally chose to bow his head and whisper to Qin Haodong, "I'm sorry, Grandmaster. I was wrong just now." Qin Haodong shook his head secretly. If Li Shuai insisted on protecting his dignity, it would at least prove that he was sincere to Hua Mingrui and deserved his admiration. Unfortunately, he chose to give up his dignity for interest. Forget it. He waved his hand. He was not even interested in arguing with this kind of person. Li Shuai silently stepped aside, knowing that he would never be able to raise his head in front of Hua Mingrui from now on. Hearing that Qin Haodong was the famous doctor mentioned by James, Mu Haiqing's face flashed with joy. He rebuked Hua Mingrui and said, "You little girl, why didn't you tell me the truth? You are a famous doctor. Why did you lie and say that you are a security guard? Don't you want to treat your grandfather?" Hua Mingrui said hesitantly, "Uncle, I asked Haodong to hide his identity because he is a Chinese medicine practitioner." "Well, stop talking. Since little Qin's medical skills are so excellent, let him treat the old master now. As long as he can cure the old master's illness, we can do anything," Mu Haiqing said eagerly. Suddenly he came to his senses and his face changed greatly. "What? A Chinese medicine practitioner?" Hua Mingrui nodded and said, "Yes, Haodong is a Chinese medicine practitioner. Get out. I don't welcome Chinese medicine practitioners here." Mu Haiqing raised his hand and pointed to the door. He was not polite at all. It could be seen how prejudiced he was against Chinese medicine practitioners. "Uncle, what are you doing?" "I invited Haodong to treat my grandfather." "Stop talking. Chinese medicine practitioners can't cure diseases at all. They are all liars." Mu Haiqing said in a stern voice, "Hurry up and drive him out. I don't welcome Chinese medicine practitioners here." Before Qin Haodong could speak, James was unhappy. He shouted, "Why are you so rude? Why do you have such a big prejudice against Chinese medicine practitioners? Chinese medicine is a very magical medical skill. My teacher is the best doctor. There is no disease that he can't cure." The surrounding experts were stunned by the scene in front of them. A Wuxia man with yellow hair and black eyes was hysterically rejecting traditional Chinese medicine, while a Caucasian man with blonde hair and blue eyes was trying his best to defend traditional Chinese medicine. The scene was really funny. At this time, Xiao Weiman stood up, took 2 steps forward and said to Qin Haodong, "Young man, are you Qin Haodong, the medical sage in Jiangnan, the head of Tangmen Traditional Chinese Medicine Company who invented the blood revival elixir and the Jiubao kidney nourishing pill?" Qin Haodong nodded and said, "Yes, Minister Xiao. Young man, you're young and promising. You've won glory for our Wuxia people. On behalf of the 4 million leukemia patients, I thank you." Xiao Weiman bowed to Qin Haodong. His bow was not for himself, but for all the leukemia patients in Wuxia. The blood revival elixir had saved countless leukemia patients and countless families at the same time. As the first deputy minister of the Ministry of Health, it was impossible for him not to know the details of the blood revival elixir. He knew that Qin Haodong's blood revival elixir did not make any profit at all. It was sold at the cost price. He had a kind of heartfelt admiration for this kind of doctor who sincerely considered for the patients. He had always wanted to go to Jiangnan to meet this legendary medical sage, but he didn't expect to meet him today. Qin Haodong quickly helped Xiao Weiman up and said, "Minister Xiao, you flatter me. I just did what a doctor should do." "Young man, you're not arrogant or rash. It's rare and commendable." Xiao Weiman turned to Mu Haiqing and said, "Brother Mu, the medical sage is a gold-lettered signboard. He once cured old Maldini's head tumor without surgery and created medical miracles one after another. The blood revival elixir he developed has saved thousands of leukemia patients. Old Master Mu's life is in danger now. I think you should let little Qin have a try." Everyone thought that since Minister Xiao had made a promise for Qin Haodong, Mu Haiqing would accept it gladly. Unexpectedly, he shook his head firmly again and said, "I don't agree. If you want to urge me to update, please go to Zongheng Chinese. 10 monthly tickets plus 1 update. You can't see other websites." Chapter 725. I don't believe in traditional Chinese medicine. It can only harm my father. It can't cure his illness at all. Mu Haiqing roared loudly. His expression was hysterical. Qin Haodong shook his head secretly. It seemed that Mu Haiqing had been deeply affected by the incident that year. His resistance to traditional Chinese medicine had been deeply rooted in his bones. It would not be easy to change it. Xiao Weiman tried to persuade him, Mr. Mu, Qin Haodong's medical skills have been verified by the whole world. You should trust him. James said, Mr. Mu, there's no other way but to choose traditional Chinese medicine and my teacher. I can assure you that Western medicine has no effective treatment for the old master's illness at present. Hua Mingrui said, Uncle, please believe in Haodong. He will definitely be able to cure Grandpa. Are you going to watch Grandpa die? The three of them tried to persuade him together, but Mu Haiqing was still unmoved. He refused to accept the treatment of traditional Chinese medicine. We don't have much time. Mu Bison's condition was urgent. Qin Haodong raised his hand to stop the three people who still wanted to persuade him. He stepped forward and grabbed Mu Haiqing's arm. Then there was a crisp crack and Mu Haiqing screamed. Everyone was shocked. They didn't expect that Qin Haodong would hit Mu Haiqing without saying a word. Was he going to use violence to force Mu Haiqing to compromise? But this was the military guest house, which was heavily guarded. Doing so would cause trouble for himself. Seeing Qin Haodong hit Mu Haiqing, Li Shuai, who had been shrinking beside him, immediately became energetic. He jumped out and shouted, Stop it. You can't touch Mr. Mu. Then he shouted outside the ward, Guards. Come here quickly. He's hitting me. After he finished speaking, there was a flurry of footsteps outside the door, and then 7 or 8 heavily armed guards rushed over. Hua Mingrui hurriedly shouted, Haodong, don't mess around. Stop it now. Xiao Weiman shouted, Little Qin, calm down. Don't be impulsive. Qin Haodong had no intention of stopping at all. He reached out his right hand and grabbed Mu Haiqing's neck. Then he gently pressed down with his thumb and there was another cracking sound. His left hand slid down and pressed on Mu Haiqing's lumbar spine. Crack. Another bone-cracking sound that made one's teeth ache was heard. Then he moved his hands up and pressed on the temples on both sides. Then he withdrew his hands and stood aside. His movements were as smooth as flowing water, incomparably fast. Only after he was done did the guards arrive in position. Li Shuai pointed at Qin Haodong and shouted, It's him. He hurt people. The head guard's face darkened. Someone dared to fight in the military sanatorium. He immediately pointed at Qin Haodong and shouted, Come on, arrest him. Wait. A few guards were about to rush over, but Mu Haiqing raised his hand to stop them. He moved his shoulders, neck and waist, then looked at Qin Haodong in horror and said, What did you do to me? Qin Haodong said lightly, You don't believe in traditional Chinese medicine, do you? Now I'll show you the magic of traditional Chinese medicine. Your left arm has serious scapulohumeral periarthritis, problems with the 4th cervical vertebra and the 4th lumbar disc herniation. I just helped you deal with it. Do you feel good now? Mu Haiqing didn't expect that Qin Haodong would use this method to make him believe in traditional Chinese medicine. He wanted to deny it, but his body was honest. His shoulders, neck and waist were indeed much more comfortable than before. Qin Haodong continued, In addition, you haven't had a good rest recently because you've been worried about old Master Mu's condition. In addition, you've been suffering from migraine before, so your headache has been getting worse and worse recently. It's a vicious cycle. I just helped you treat it. At the same time, you have serious superficial gastritis and gastric ulcers because of your irregular diet. But it's not convenient to massage this position. You need acupuncture or medicine. Mu Haiqing felt his head again. Recently, he had been really worried about his father's condition and couldn't sleep at night. Therefore, the migraine was getting worse and worse. He often hit his head against the wall because of the pain. Now he felt it. Instead of feeling any pain, he felt very comfortable. Hearing that Qin Haodong was treating Mu Haiqing and it was a complete false alarm, the head guard looked at Li Shuai with disdain and said, You're a doctor. You can't even see the disease. You're making a fuss. Aren't you making trouble? Retreat. He waved his hand and left the ward with the other guards. Li Shuai looked embarrassed and depressed. He was just a doctor of Western medicine in the department of cardiopulmonary. How could he know that there was such a unique treatment method? After the guards left, the whole room fell into silence. After a while, Mu Haiqing said, I still don't believe that you can cure my disease by pressing a few times. I think you must have used some trick to deceive me. Qin Haodong said, It's very simple. We have all kinds of equipment here. You can do a check. If the diseases I just mentioned are not eliminated, then I'll turn around and leave. If the disease has been cured, please believe in my medical skills and Chinese medicine. Hua Mingrui said, Yes, uncle, you can do a check. Mu Haiqing thought for a moment and finally nodded. He began to do a CT examination of his shoulder, cervical spine and lumbar spine. The equipment here was the most advanced in the world. After a few minutes, the examination results came out. James held the CT film in his hand and shouted excitedly, "My teacher is really amazing. Everything is normal. There are no symptoms of disease." Mu Haiqing didn't believe it. He took the CT film and asked the other experts to look at it one by one. Finally, they gave a unanimous conclusion: the shoulder joint, cervical spine and lumbar spine are very healthy. There is no problem. Hearing this result, Hua Mingrui, Xiao Weimin and James all looked relieved. They thought that Mu Haiqing would definitely accept Qin Haodong's medical skills. But they still underestimated his stubbornness. After knowing that these diseases had been completely cured, he still remained silent and did not say anything. He had done so much, but Mu Haiqing still had the same attitude. Qin Haodong's face immediately darkened. "Mr. Mu, my medical skills are dignified. The reason why I asked to treat Master Meng is that he is a hero of Wuxia and has made great contributions to the people of Wuxia. If you would rather watch your father die for the wrong obsession in your heart, then I have nothing to say. Goodbye." He had done his best. If Mu Haiqing still refused to accept traditional Chinese medicine after saying so much, then he could only let Mu Baisun die. After that, he stepped out of the ward. Hua Mingrui shouted anxiously, "Haodong, wait a minute." Qin Haodong did not stop at all and continued to walk out of the ward. Although the two of them were very good friends, he also had to maintain the dignity of traditional Chinese medicine. Since Mu Haiqing did not accept it, there was no need to force him. Hua Mingrui turned around and shouted to Mu Haiqing, "Uncle, the quack doctor failed to cure your disease. It was his medical skills that were not good enough, not the traditional Chinese medicine. Western medicine has never killed a patient, and Western medicine has never misdiagnosed a patient. Grandfather is already on the brink of death. Are you just going to watch him die like this?" Just as Qin Haodong was about to walk out of the ward, Mu Haiqing moved. "Dr. Qin, wait a minute. It's my fault. Please treat my father." In the end, with Qin Haodong's magical medical skills, Mu Haiqing overcame his psychological barriers and chose to let traditional Chinese medicine treat his father. Everyone present breathed a sigh of relief. Qin Haodong also stopped, turned around and walked back. Since Mu Haiqing had admitted his mistake, he had to treat him for the sake of Hua Mingrui and Mu Baisun. He walked to the bed and said to Xiao Weimin, "Little Qin, do you want to see the results of the examination?" Qin Haodong shook his head and said, "No need. I just checked old Master Mu's condition and I already know what to do." Another middle-aged doctor in the expert group asked, "Dr. Qin, I want to ask you, how do you want to treat old Master Mu?" "Acupuncture and medicine. I can wake old Master Mu up through acupuncture and restore some of his mobility. But because his condition is serious, he still needs to take traditional Chinese medicine." As Qin Haodong spoke, he took out the needle bag from his pocket. Another old doctor asked, "Dr. Qin, old Master Mu's lungs have already shown signs of fibrosis. Will your acupuncture really work?" Qin Haodong said proudly, "Other people's acupuncture may not work, but mine will definitely work." Fibrosis was the most serious kind of lung disease, even more terrible than stomach cancer. If it were someone else, they would really have no way to treat it. However, Qin Haodong was proficient in the rejuvenating acupuncture method, so he could treat pulmonary fibrosis with acupuncture. Hearing his confident words, the other doctors were doubtful. However, they had no good idea now, so they could only quietly watch the young man perform his medical skills. Qin Haodong came to old Master Mu's bedside and reached out to pull out all kinds of equipment and oxygen from his body. Everyone else was shocked. With old Master Mu's current condition, without the support of these equipment, his life would soon be in danger. As expected, as the oxygen was removed, old Master Mu immediately had difficulty breathing and his face became more and more ugly. Mu Haiqing was shocked, but before he could say anything, Qin Haodong moved as fast as lightning. In the blink of an eye, more than a dozen silver needles were inserted into the major acupoints on Mu Baisun's chest. It was amazing. As these silver needles were inserted, old Master Mu's breathing immediately calmed down and his face became much more relaxed. After seeing this magical effect, Mu Haiqing closed his mouth again, and he had more confidence in Qin Haodong's medical skills. After the silver needles were inserted, Qin Haodong did not stop. His hands kept moving on the end of the needles, and he kept injecting green wood genuine qi into old Master Mu's body. The greatest feature of the rejuvenating acupuncture method was that it could reorganize human tissues. With the magical effect of greenwood genuine qi on diseases, Mu Bison's condition soon improved greatly. The pulmonary fibrosis was completely removed, and the blocked meridians were completely opened by genuine qi. About 15 minutes later, Qin Haodong raised his hand and withdrew the silver needles. At the same time he took out a physique-improving pill and put it into old Master Mu's mouth. This physique-improving pill was refined by him and the little fellow yesterday with 5,000-year-old medicinal materials. Both the materials and the refining method had been greatly improved, and the effect of the refined pill was several times better than before. Everyone was watching. Mu Bison's face became more and more ruddy, and his breathing became more and more stable. All the previous symptoms disappeared, and they couldn't help but click their tongues in wonder. They were all experts in this field, and just now they were helpless about old Master Mu's condition. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have believed that traditional Chinese medicine could have such a magical effect. Seeing that it was almost time, Qin Haodong reached out and patted Mu Bison's chest. Then old Master Mu slowly opened his eyes. Seeing that his father was really saved, Mu Haiqing immediately rushed to the bed, reached out to grab the old man's hand and cried excitedly, "Dad, you're awake. Are you okay?" Chapter 726. Go away. What are you shouting for? Mu Bison was a soldier and had a hot temper. He slapped Mu Haiqing's hand away and then sat up on the bed. The experts in the ward all stared with their eyes wide open. This was a patient who was on the verge of death. In less than half an hour he sat up on the bed by himself. If they didn't see it with their own eyes, who would believe it? Li Shuai was shocked and bitter. When he saw Hua Mingrui looking at Qin Haodong with admiration and love in her eyes, he knew that there was no hope for him in the future. Mu Bison raised his head and glanced at the white coats in the room. Then he saw Xiao Weiman and asked, "Minister Xiao, why are you here?" "General, you've been seriously ill these days. I've brought someone here to treat you." Although Xiao Weiman was the deputy minister, he was very respectful to the old man who had fought with Taizu. Mu Bison patted his head and cried, "Look at my memory. How could I forget that I was sick before?" After that, he reached out to hold Mu Haiqing's shoulder and stood up from the bed. Then he said to Xiao Weiman, "Minister Xiao, I really want to thank you. Look at how well I've recovered. I haven't been able to get out of bed for a long time, but now I can get out of bed and walk. My chest is not blocked and I can breathe freely. It's as if I've suddenly become dozens of years younger. I haven't felt so comfortable for a long time." After that the old man walked slowly. The experts' glasses were all broken. Some even began to pinch themselves secretly to make sure if it was true. In their original idea, even if Qin Haodong could cure the old man, he would have to rest in bed for a period of time. But now it was not the case at all. The old man could actually walk. Xiao Weiman quickly said, "Master, this is not my credit. I don't dare to accept it. It's not us experts who cured you but someone else." Mu Bison stood there, looked at him in surprise and said, "Who else could it be?" Xiao Weiman pulled Qin Haodong over and said, "Old master, it's him who cured you. He's the medical sage of Wuxia, little Qin. Just now all of us were helpless about your illness. We even made the final decision. It was little Qin who saved you." Mu Haiqing looked at Qin Haodong awkwardly and then said to the old man, "Dad, Dr. Qin is Mingrui's boyfriend. Mingrui specially invited him to treat you." "The girl's boyfriend?" Mu Bison's eyes lit up after hearing that. He looked Qin Haodong up and down as if he was looking at a rare treasure. "Young man, you're not bad. You're worthy of my granddaughter. I'll make the decision about your marriage. No one can object in the future." Although old Master Mu was over 80 years old, he was not stupid. When he saw Qin Haodong's ordinary clothes, he thought that he was a child of an ordinary family. He felt that there would be great resistance if he was with Hua Mingrui, so he stood up to support him. However, he did not expect that Qin Haodong's boyfriend was fake. In the face of such a misunderstanding, Qin Haodong could not explain it, so he could only smile awkwardly. Hua Mingrui said shyly, "Grandpa, you've just recovered and you're talking nonsense." Mu Bison said, "You little girl, I'm not talking nonsense. You're not young anymore. What's there to be embarrassed about having a boyfriend? I think this young man is really good. You must hold on to him. Don't let him run away." After saying that, he laughed out loud. Mu Haiqing said to Qin Haodong, "Little Qin, it was my fault just now. Now I formally apologize to you. Tell me how to treat your grandfather's illness. Just tell me what you need me to do." Qin Haodong looked embarrassed. This family was really generous. In such a short time he had an uncle and a grandfather. Mr. Mu's illness is only half cured now. I'll give him acupuncture again and add Chinese medicine to recuperate. Then Qin Haodong took a pen and paper, wrote a prescription and handed it to Mu Haiqing. At present, according to this prescription, take it 3 times a day after meals. I'll come back in a week to give him acupuncture. Hua Mingrui said, Haodong, will my grandfather's body be completely cured after the treatment? Qin Haodong said, of course. With your body, it's not a problem for you to live to 100 years old. If this came out of someone else's mouth, everyone would think that it was flattery, but no one doubted it at all when Qin Haodong said it. After all, his medical skills were really amazing. Mu Bison asked excitedly, boy, can I drink after I'm cured? Of course. Qin Haodong said, but you're an old man after all. You should drink in moderation. Don't drink too much. That's great. I haven't drunk for several years. I'm not willing to die like this. He turned around and said to Mu Haiqing and Hua Mingrui, you all heard it. Little Qin said that I can drink. Don't stop me in the future. Looking at the old man's serious expression, everyone couldn't help laughing. After chatting for a while, the old man lay in bed to rest. Xiao Weiman said to Qin Haodong, Little Qin, my wife's cervical vertebra has been very bad these years, and it's very serious. Many doctors haven't been able to cure it. Can you please come to my house to see her? Qin Haodong never refused to see a doctor. He simply said, of course. As the first deputy minister of the Ministry of Health, Xiao Weiman could be said to be in charge of all the famous doctors in Wuxia. He had also taken his wife to see many doctors, but there was no effect. Originally he had already given up hope, but after seeing Qin Haodong's medical skills today, he immediately had hope again. Mu Bison lay in bed to rest and Hua Mingrui stayed to take care of him. The other experts left the sanatorium one after another. Xiao Weiman rushed to his home with Qin Haodong. According to his rank, Xiao Weiman had a special car, but he didn't take his own car. Instead, he got in Qin Haodong's car. Qin Haodong started the car and asked while driving, Minister Xiao, is anti-cervical vertebra very serious? It's indeed very serious. Xiao Weiman sighed and said, her cervical vertebra canal is congenital stenosis, and the nerves in the spinal canal are twisted and deformed. There's no way to operate at all. Over the years, I have taken her to see many famous doctors, but there was no effect. On the contrary, as she grew older, her condition became more and more serious. Due to insufficient blood supply, she is very dizzy. Recently, she has fallen several times. Fortunately, she is not seriously injured, but I don't dare to let her go to work. She has been recuperating at home. Oh? Qin Haodong nodded. This was also what he had expected. If it were an ordinary disease, it would have been cured long ago with the medical level of the capital. Speaking of this, Xiao Weiman asked, Little Dr. Qin, can your aunt's disease be cured? Now Qin Haodong was his last hope. If even this doctor couldn't cure his wife's disease, he would really be desperate. Qin Haodong smiled and said, no problem, I can cure it. In terms of the condition, Xiao Weiman's wife's disease was a difficult and complicated disease, which had exceeded the current medical level. However, his medical skills were also far beyond the current medical level. Others couldn't do anything about the congenital narrowing of the spinal canal, but he could slowly widen it with the greenwood genuine qi. As for the nerve knot in the spine, he could open the knot with the Bodhi's hand. Xiao Weiman's home was not too far from the military sanatorium. Soon they arrived downstairs. After parking the car, they walked upstairs together. Opening the door, they saw that it was a house of about 80 square meters. The decoration was also ordinary. This kind of house was good for ordinary families, but it was a little shabby for a deputy ministerial cadre like Xiao Weiman. Qin Haodong nodded secretly. It seemed that Minister Xiao was indeed a good official. Xiyuan, I'm back. Xiao Weiman's wife's name was Liao Xiyuan. He greeted her and took Qin Haodong to the living room. After entering the door, he saw that there was someone at home. Liao Xiyuan was sitting on the sofa in the living room. Opposite her was a white-haired old man in his 70s, who was feeling her pulse. Next to him stood a middle-aged man in his 50s. He was Yang Haijing, the director of the Sanitary Bureau of the capital. Qin Haodong was slightly stunned when he saw the old man. He didn't expect to meet an old acquaintance at Minister Xiao's home. The old man was Su Hongba, a professor of traditional Chinese medicine at the Shanghai Medical College. It turned out that Yang Haijing knew that Liao Xiyuan's condition had worsened, so he invited Su Hongba to treat her. Seeing Xiao Weiman enter the door, Liao Shuyuan said, "Old Xiao, you're back. Director Yang invited Dr. Su to treat me." She just nodded to Qin Haodong, who was behind Xiao Weiman. She thought that this young man was the new driver of the department. Xiao Weiman nodded to Yang Haijing and said, "Director Yang, sorry to trouble you with my wife's illness." Yang Haijing quickly said, "It's no trouble at all. It just so happens that Master Su is in the capital these days, so I invited him to treat sister-in-law." He was very satisfied with what had happened today. Xiao Weiman was his immediate superior. He invited Su Hongba here today to please him. It was perfect that Xiao Weiman met him. If Su Hongba could cure Liao Shuyuan's illness, it would be perfect. Su Hongba withdrew his hand, stood up and greeted Xiao Weiman. Suddenly he saw Qin Haodong next to him and said in surprise, "Little Qin, I didn't expect to meet you here. It seems that Ms. Liao's illness can be cured." "Hello, Master Su." Qin Haodong greeted him politely. Yang Haijing asked in surprise, "Master Su, who is this little brother?" "He is the developer of the blood revival elixir, the famous medical sage Qin Haodong. Although little Qin is young, his medical skills are hundreds of times better than mine." Su Hongba said excitedly, "To be honest, I can't do anything about Ms. Liao's illness. I can only relieve the symptoms of dizziness and headache with some traditional Chinese medicine, but I can't get rid of the root cause of the disease. But it's different with little Qin. He must have a way." After hearing his words, Yang Haijing and Liao Shuyuan were slightly stunned. One of them was the director of the Sanitary Bureau, and the other was the wife of the Deputy Minister of the Ministry of Health. They had long heard of the famous medical sage, but they didn't expect him to be so young. Xiao Weiman said, "Little Qin just cured old Master Mu's illness. I happened to meet him, so I invited him home." "What? Old Master Mu's illness has been cured?" As the director of the Sanitary Bureau of the capital, he had also visited old Master Mu before. He knew how serious old Master Mu's illness was, so he was surprised to hear that Qin Haodong had cured Mu Bison. Xiao Weiman said with a smile, "Little Qin's medical skills are really amazing. Old Master Mu can walk now." "Dr. Qin, you are really young and promising." Yang Haijing quickly reached out his hands and shook hands with Qin Haodong enthusiastically. Although he was the director of the Sanitary Bureau, he was the medical sage of Wuxia, a really capable person. Qin Haodong shook hands with him and then said to Su Hongba, "Master Su, how is Auntie Liao's illness?" Su Hongba briefly told him the result of his pulse feeling, which was basically the same as Xiao Weiman's introduction. Then he said, "Little Qin, I can't do anything about this kind of difficult disease. It's up to you." You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.